Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we want to discuss the agenda. There's a gentleman coming to talk to us on our new business, Stan Moyer, to address this non-ethanol fuel sales thing. And when he gets here, with your permission, I will modify the schedule, allow him to give his presentation to get out of here, okay? He's going to be here maybe about 9:30 or so. Also, I have got public comments at the beginning and the end again, because there are people who would like to make their presentations to us and get out of here. I'm going to allow that, of course, and then we'll have those who want to hang around and listen to all we have to say and make public comments are certainly welcome to do that too. But the purpose of public comments is to present to us information you'd like to share with us, and it's not a debate. I mean, if you have a question, we'll try to answer it. If you have a concern, we'll try to communicate, but we don't want to get into one of these long-term debates that every now and then occurs, okay? And also, if you're going to hang around till the end and want to make a public comment then, fine, but you can't make one at the beginning and at the end, okay? That becomes a little, it gets out of order. So anyway, we'll start with public comments, and if any of the members here would like to make any, now's the time to do it. Okay, oh, wait a minute, who goes first? Okay, would you stand, please, sir, and give us your name and address?
Yes, my name's Marston Furlow.
Oh, okay, hi, Marston.
Hi, Bill. I'm refer to you. I am 58 Pinehurst in Ocean Pines, and I've presented you. I've emailed everybody on the board, and I've also sent the directors and all the individual persons on the board that had their email address. And I also have given you, and there were attachments to that email if you went through all of that. It's pretty extensive to go along with my letter. But the letter addresses an ongoing problem with flooding in the Pinehurst area of Ocean Pines, and this is section 3. And this has been an ongoing problem for years, and it has not been addressed by this board. There's been token. I will have to say there's been token efforts done, but there's nothing really ever specifically. The issue has not really been addressed directly. The board is well aware of this. There's been many studies on this. It's gone back a decade with studies on this. And let me say that, as it said in my letter, there are, and I have it, the whole argument refined right here before you and showing it to you. But the essence of it is that in the upper Pinehurst area at Beacon Hill, there's a severe flooding issue that's purely contained within the Ocean Pines system. This has nothing to do with the lower Pinehurst, which is down, which is from the drainage that comes from the Bainbridge Pond and Pinehurst along Beecham Road. That severely floods too. That is not our issue. Now that issue, I recognize that issue. I've said it in my letter. That's something that needs to be addressed with the county, because I understand, because it goes under a county road and what have you. The upper Pinehurst area at Beacon Hill and Pinehurst Road is a very severe flooding issue, and what that's caused from is, and you all can refer to the handout I gave you here on the second page. There's a common low point in this particular area of the neighborhood. And this common low point fills up with water during severe storms. It ponds, and as a result of the ponding, impedes the flow of all the drainage ditches that are around this area. The other problem too is that the confluence of all the flow drains right at this intersection of Beacon Hill and Pinehurst. And all of that area, all of this entire area right in here, all flows right here, and it all floods down. The only way for it to get down is the north ditch of Pinehurst. And the northern ditch that follows Pinehurst down to the main drainage channel. There's a main drainage channel between 38 and 40 Pinehurst Road, or I think it's 36 and 38 Pinehurst. But there's a main drainage channel that goes down to the Bainbridge Retention Pond. And as you can see on this right here, there is a black line right here. You'll see it looks like a fork, one here and one here, that comes into a fork, and it leads down to the same drainage channel that goes to the Bainbridge Park Retention Pond. This is unutilized right now. The engineers put it in, it's right here. There is no drainage ditch or easement. This has all been recognized. This particular issue has been recognized before in studies. I've gotten one study out by the CPC. I attached that study to my email. They recognize that there are low points, and this is one of the low points specifically in this section. And they have noticed that, and I'm sure this has to do with ours, and there's actually some other low points. I detailed it out very thoroughly in my letter that there needs to be a plan of action done. This drainage easement needs to be cleaned out. It is. There's also a terrible problem with debris. There's years and years. I don't think it's ever been cleaned out. And I've noticed your motions too about going in, the ongoing thing about the this coincides perfectly with your motions on doing inspections. And in your inspection, you're almost on the point. The one thing that you need to do is you do need to make sure that there's inspections on every single property in Ocean Pines. There's 8,500. I figured out it's about 30 a day. You need to get an inspector on there 30 a day, and through the whole year they can get them all done in a year on 250 days of work. So, or 35 a day, somewhere around there, 33, 35 a day. So all those inspections, every property needs to be inspected. But I've laid out a plan of action. You need to clear the trees of this easement here. You need to clear all the debris and undergrowth that's in here, and you need to put a swale in here, and put a swale in here, and put this all the way down to the drainage channel. If you put a swale down there, the drainage channel where it closes is about a 7 or 8 foot drop. And I would recommend that you put a swale to the point where you need to put an underground pipe, and then pipe the water flow low so it would go down to the main drainage channel. Because by the time it gets to these houses back here, they're gonna have a 7, 8 foot drainage ditch in the back of their yard, and they're not going to want that. So that's why I'm recommending an underground pipe for here. This is an ongoing problem. It's been recognized for over a decade. I've taken the liberty. I've attached a motion here on the back of mine, on the back of this, on the back of my presentation, which charges the general manager to get a plan of action and to address this issue. And I've laid that all out. That's it in a nutshell. And this needs to be taken care of. It's not a county problem. This is purely within the Ocean Pines system. This will take care of it. There's also some other things that need to be done. A couple of extra culvert pipes underneath. A couple of extra culvert pipes to allow flow on Pinehurst and on on Beacon Hill to allow the flow to go here so this would address the whole area. But all of these houses, there's about 30 affected houses, and they look just like those two pictures there. They get, their yards totally get inundated. When I say flood, what I mean by is inundated, the entire yard is covered with water. And if there's any questions, I would certainly be happy to answer your questions. And you know, this has been, and the thing about it is, I just want to let you know, this has been going on for years. There is nothing new about this. This has been recognized in study after study by this, by the Ocean Pines Association. Time for, this is paralysis by analysis. This is the plan. It needs to be done. This is what needs to be done. There needs to be a plan of action now. And it's up to the board to ensure that whoever you do, to the Department of Public Works to get, or do this internally, or you're going to hire some people to do this externally through contractual basis. But this needs to be done, and I would hope that the board would probably would have this would start on the plan of action by next month. You could tell me that it's going into place. You're getting bids, and this is going to be completed. Thank you.
Would you do me a favor? My email address is on here. This is the first I've ever heard of it.
We have an email problem with mchsi.com, as you may
Yes, I
or may not know.
Yours is as directors. It's under directors. I don't have your personal.
He has a
email.
personal problem with email, so.
Okay.
Well, no, it was addressed to directors and I didn't get it.
Marston, thank
That's
you.
not a big shock.
I agree we need a plan of action. The general manager agrees we need a plan of action. And
The general manager has mentioned the Pinehurst area. He's mentioned about the county.
Okay. Yeah.
is
And
not
does anybody
county.
else want to speak on the same subject? Okay, you, sir?
Yes, sir. Okay, my name is Donald Logan. I live at 140 Pinehurst Road, and my lot number, I think it's 376. I think it's my lot number.
We don't care about that.
Good morning, everybody. Glad to be here. I'd like to shed a little light on the flooding problem on Pinehurst Road. Since I said I live at 140 Pinehurst Road, we get the blunt of the street being closed every time we get a hard rain. We can't get out away from our house because of the fact that we have to go through the water, and water does get right high. I'd like to read you, I think the fastest way to do this, for me to read you what I wrote to the Architectural Review Committee on July 10th, 2002. And I'm going to leave some of this out. It's not really important for what we're talking about today. To whom it may concern, our sincere thanks to everyone for making time for this meeting. I appreciate this. All right, because of the present stormwater drainage system relies on open ditches to empty the overflow of Bainbridge Park Lake, which collects most of the runoff of Section 2 and 3. The stormwater travels around the back of our lot and ends up in front of our lot. The water can't enter under Pinehurst Road to Beecham Road to River Run. River Run Golf Course dams up the water into 3 ponds and thus prevents it from reaching St. Martin's River. The water can't run uphill to run along Beecham Road to the boat ramp canal. The drainage ditch goes down, and when it gets down near the boat ramp, it goes uphill. It stops, in other words. It's a container ditch. And if that was continue on and you had a collecting pond on Ocean Pine property, you could collect that water and let it settle out, and then ease that water into the canal down there. Okay. The water, therefore all the storm fresh water backs up to the lowest area, which is in the region of 140 Pinehurst Road. By the way, on River Run Golf Course side of Beecham Road, the drainage ditch was eliminated when the course was constructed. And also from one of the studies that was done by an outside concern, they said a lot of the piping that was put in when the golf course was made, they had the piping running uphill instead of running downhill to drain towards the river. Please study the elevation of Frank G. Lynch Jr. boundary survey. Next page. All right, and on that survey, he said we're 15 feet above, 15 to 15 and a half feet above the sea level. So I don't see why there should be flooding in that area. On March 28, 1990, I wrote to Mr. Charles Rooney a letter asking him to meet with me at the lot to go over the drainage problem. Mr. Rooney did not respond. For several years, I would talk with Mrs. Elaine Coleman, Assistant General Manager, the ECC Committee, and Mr. Tim Stoner. Some of you people still remember him. The General Manager of Ocean Pines. I would, under old business at general meetings, always bring up the drainage problem in Section 3. Mr. Curtis A. Allison, General Manager, picked up from Tom Sikola, and Tom ended up getting the problem back after Mr. Allison left the job. I pursued the problem again with Tom Sikola, who then turned it over to General Manager Dave Ferguson. The conclusion from the first year 2000 field trip with Mr. Jim Hudson, Director of Public Works Maintenance Department, and Dave Ferguson was that it was a real problem and the road had to be closed several times in the past. The next year, 2001, Mr. Ferguson revisited my lot. We checked out River Run Ponds, Buchan Road drainage ditch, the ditch from Spring Park. Dave assured me that the problem would be corrected. And by the way, they were talking about putting another drainage pipe going in the opposite direction from Bainbridge Pond to try to get rid of some of that water. Every time it rains, all the water goes in that pond. And the pond has filled in, so I've been told, through the years. It's not as deep as it used to be, and it's only one outlet, and that's a little drainage ditch comes down around between the houses to Pinehurst Road. Okay. Meanwhile, Dave sent Mr. Fred Boyne, the ARC inspector, to offer Janine and Don tips on how the lot could be drained better. Fred was standing between the houses of lot 138 and 140 and told me to use fill dirt to build up the land and increase the drainage from the lot. I was low, the other two houses were high. But that, believe me, that didn't solve any problem. Since we purchased the house and lot in 1986 and received a copy of Declaration of Restrictions, OP Section 3, dated 1/5/69 by Maryland Marine Properties Incorporated, we are entitled to follow this copy. After working many years and retiring 7 years ago, the Logans wanted to upgrade the house and the neighborhood by removing the old house and having a more expensive house built. Since the OPA flooding problem still remains after 16 years, this was never corrected as promised. The only way to build a house is to have a much higher foundation, which we did. The land needs to be built back up, and a higher foundation is a way to prevent water problems from getting under the house. The original house got wet on the bottom. The Logans are willing to spend extra funds to overcome as much as possible the OPA's failure to correct the flooding problem. We are not willing to have this new house flooded. The old restriction doesn't limit the height of the building. In other words, you can make your foundation as high as you want. Enclosed are some samples of correspondence that went back and forth since 1990, and we bought that old house and the land in 1986, I believe it was, about correcting this flooding. The result to this day is a big fat 0. And to conclude, summary, ladies and gentlemen. 1, drainage system not big enough. I think we all realize that now. 2, River Run needs to be corrected. They have 3 ponds over there, and they have a stillway in the last pond. Water goes to first, second pond. We did this on a field trip with your people. And the 3rd pond, they have boards in there, and it forms a dam. And when it rains, they're supposed to take these boards out so the water can go down to the river. They don't want to take the boards out for 2 reasons. They're lazy is number 1. Number 2, they're saving those 3 ponds, all that water, to water the grass for the golf course. And they will not, back in those days, they would not cooperate with us. They said they would, but they wouldn't. By the way, I noticed this last storm, all of a sudden water disappeared the next day. Water doesn't drain that fast. I've been here long enough to know that. And I think that they must have removed some of the boards out of this spillway and let the water run out to the river. That's the only thing I can come up with. All right, so River Run needs to be corrected. Brain Bridge needs more outlets for the water from the rainwater to leave the pond and go wherever you want to take it. Action, not words, will get the job done. Thanks for the time to tell everyone what is wrong with our stormwater drainage system.
Thank you, Mr. Logan.
You're welcome.
Mr. Logan, could I have a copy, please?
You can make a
Yes, sir.
My name's Calvin Riddick. I live at 59 Pinehurst Road. I'm right across the street from Marsden, and my wife and I are here. I can give you pictures if you would like, but it's pretty much the same as Marsden's house every time we get these big storms. My next door neighbor is probably a little worse than mine. So far my driveway hasn't gone underwater, but he has to get on boots to get to his car when we have these episodes. But I would just like to voice my support for the positions that Marsden and this gentleman have taken, and encourage the board to start some action.
Thank you.
And-
We need your address.
59 Pinehurst Road.
And I'm Joan Riddick, okay? And Mr. Olson's been to our house, okay, and this was a year ago. And we were promised at that time something would happen. You know, nothing's been done. And I just want to say, you're fixing the place in the park, and that hasn't had a problem nearly as long as our area has. So, just to go on record.
Thank you. Anybody else on this subject?
Oh, well, I can't get out.
What's it, Janine
When
Logan?
Pinehurst is flooded, I can't get a car out. And I want to know, seriously, there are times I have to get out, and one of you can come get me.
All right. Thank you for your comments. I went over there myself the other day and looked at, I've been over there several times, as a matter of fact, and looked at the situation. We know there's a situation, and we in fact do need to have a plan of action. Okay? You want to say anything, Tom, real briefly?
I have one question for Marsden. When this floods like this,
Yes.
how long does that water stay? Let me tell you why I'm asking. Typically within 3 tide cycles, we find that the entire Pinehurst section drains. If this is ponding more than that, then I'm kind of interested in knowing that. But I'm thinking
I
that
believe
it's-
this has been the 4th or possibly even, how many, has it been 5? I think it's been 5 floods this year since last December.
Oh yeah, no, there's no question
No, but the
about it.
question is, how long does the water
How long does it
remain there?
stay? My experience is within 24 hours, the most of it is gone.
But there's still more water. There's still,
Okay,
it's
well,
not.
we are going to solve that now, but I believe there was a meeting recently with the county on this and our people.
Well,
We had a
and
meeting
probably just
yesterday, and, no, I didn't know you guys were going to be here today, but you're always welcome. But there is going to be a meeting in January.
Yeah.
Tom?
First thing I want everyone from the Pinehurst section to know, nobody's more concerned about this than me. I mean, I didn't know you were bringing these pictures today, but I brought these pictures for the board.
Hey, wait.
No, Tom, I'm sorry, these are pictures for the board that
Yeah.
you brought, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But understand, everything that I've heard has to do with the lower Pinehurst area.
That's
And-
exactly
okay,
what- that's
and
exactly why I
and
asked
just to
you
let
what
you
time.
know,
Yeah.
that needs to be addressed, and I think,
All
I
right,
mean.
we're going to address it, Tom. We really don't need to, we can't solve this today. I really thank you for the information. I just, if we are planning to have a meeting in the near future on this, to address it again and look at all the elevations and all, we are looking at this thing, and I promise you, we will come up with a plan of action. Okay, Dave?
Are you going to mention this during the general manager's report? You had the pictures, I was wondering.
Yes, I was going to briefly talk about it, but
Well, you want to
You know-
talk, go ahead and talk about it right now.
Well-
Let's have that portion of your general manager's report.
okay. Well, first of all, we've been studying this for quite some time. We actually retained the services of an engineer last year to develop a proposed solution that would help us to drain that section, and it was the lower Pinehurst section, but I believe they're all interconnected. Now, I will confirm with our engineers that they are interconnected. If not, we'll have to address that one separately. But we had several meetings with the county this year, and the agreement was that if I did the engineering side of it, that we would present those plans to the county, and they would consider repairing the problem by rediverting some of the stormwater down Beecham Road. In the interim, the state cut a substantial amount of their funding out of the budget this year, and they had no funds available to do that. I met just last Thursday with the Director of Public Works for the county, again to discuss this, because we are very concerned about it, and we're looking for, to make sure that we have funding set aside by the county this year to do that, to make those repairs, and they are skeptical as to whether or not funding will be available, but my next step will be to talk to the board about presenting a request to the county commissioners, asking them to do everything they need to do to make sure funding is available.
Okay.
I have a question,
Yes.
Bill, if I may. I know this is a complicated subject, and we can't get into it possibly now.
Can't solve it.
What I'm trying to do is see if we can pin down a time when I think the
Tom is
problem...
working on that. Tom, we discussed it
yeah,
yesterday.
point.
Yeah,
Next
We're gonna-
where you can address the full range of solutions,
Yes,
not just the
exactly.
one
We're gonna do
you
that.
looked
Next-
at.
the next step is-
And you know, I think probably a board meeting would not be a good time to do it, but perhaps have a special meeting, including the residents of Pinehurst, so they can see what it is.
Exactly
that
what's
we're
being
doing.
planned. What I've asked the county to do is to make
Okay.
those folks that are responsible for the drainage be available for a public meeting that would.
So that is going to, that
Yeah,
public
we-
meeting
we-
is going to
yesterday.
happen
Planned
with the
right
whole...
I
addressed
expect
it
that,
yesterday,
I
okay?
expect that to happen after the holidays. I don't expect
Yeah.
it to happen right now.
Yeah, I wasn't there yesterday, so...
Okay, all right, so,
Neither. You know that.
we'll,
You know that.
yes?
I just have a simple question. Is this, how many other drainage problems do we have in the Pines? Is this the worst one?
We have, this is
Where do we stand?
this is the worst.
Sure.
This is
Oh,
the
what about
worst.
Colburn is?
Well, there's several hundred others, but I mean, this is the worst, I think. Okay, no, we're not going to talk about this anymore. We've got to move on. I thank you for you know, we departed from the rules because I wanted to make sure that we did honor your concerns, okay? So, thank you very much. We're going to move on to, anybody else have any public comments they want to address on another subject?
I got one.
Well, hold on a minute. Who?
Ray.
Okay, Mr. Unger.
Ray Unger, 22 Liberty Street, Ocean Pines. I attended the county commissioners meeting yesterday, and Judy Boggs asked me to bring up the two things that concerned Ocean Pines that were approved. They did approve funds for for Madison Bunning to continue the survey work and to go ahead and get that done over on section 15. I think that's which you'll know what that is because you guys are working on it already. They are also saying, and gave the approval yesterday, to go out to bid for the construction of the new fire hydrants on the north end. So that was all approved yesterday, and I brought the package up.
Thank you, Ray.
Guys,
Appreciate it.
from the county.
Okay. All right, next.
All right. My name is Fuller Boating for a floor guy, and before I say something, I got the same problem with the water home, what this people, and it's still loaded. The president here approached me that I'm too personal here. I am not too personal. I'm brought up just like a country boy. I don't got a Harvard education. And I was brought up, if I come forward and I tell the truth, there's nobody can stop me. I made the last meeting a remark about one of the board members. If he thought that he was the person, the shoe fit him, let it fit. I am the most concerned what the people are telling me is about you people are gonna spend all that money again on the yacht club. Let me give you an example. In the United States, Ford Company, GM, all these big companies, for years the big companies in the world, they brought bad things to the market. They got defeated. They lost the market. If you understand what I mean. Foreign countries are selling us all the cars. Same thing had happened here. What happened with Ford 50 years ago here on Ocean Pine is not more working today. That goes for the yacht club and the golf course. We are defeated in that field. You people keep putting money and money and money in it, and we're not going to get a step farther. I ask you people, what's the beef? This is the same thing these people here were sitting. For years they had the problem. I had for years, I came here one time and raised hell about my ditches. There's no money to clean the ditches when the money goes into the yacht club at the golf course. That is what I'm talking. I have not cost here any word about anybody else. What bothers me, everything gets cut back in Ocean Pine. Laying 10, 15 people off. The people that want to get a hospitalization is cut back. But nothing is done on the top. Now, I know the letter came out from Ray about all the salaries here in Ocean Pine. You put an ad, sir, you want to go on the internet, and I'm just saying, I'll make it so you want to ask for a new controller, you want to ask for a new manager, you're going to get it cheaper. We were paying too much money. This is where our money goes to. You have to cut the top back too. And I told you once before, none of you people here got the guts and say between the yacht club and the golf course, enough is enough. We was misled with the $6 million committee hall by the management. We was misrepresented by the damaged swimming pool. This is all money is gone and gone. And now you ask me $30 more. You know how many people are hurting in this country, Bill?
I do.
All right. I ask you as a man, you have to stop it. This is what we have elected you people for. You know, I'm hate no guts, not even that man there. I don't hate his personal guts, maybe he thinks so. I think he's a very nice father, a very nice husband, but I just don't like the policy that goes on here in Ocean Pine. This is all I got to say, Bill. And I think that some of you people are brainwashed by the management. And I can tell you that I was brainwashed by the management, but I stopped them.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry that I'm talking.
All right. Anybody else have any public comments they want to make now? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from last month, regular meeting. Do we have any comments on those minutes? All right, then without objection, the minutes are approved. County Commissioners report. Tom?
It's passed out.
It was passed out to the...
Yeah, this morning.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
Right over there.
How do people say everybody gets this stuff?
We're supposed to pick
Wait a
it
minute,
up,
wait a minute.
Mark.
I got it. Greg Karnak.
I got mine 20 minutes ago.
Well, good for you. I mean, 20 minutes ago isn't enough to read it before a meeting.
It's Linda Busick's report. It's Linda Busick's report, I believe.
Yeah. It's Linda
I
Busick.
told her, don't even send them. Her husband's more important.
That's a fact.
It was at the head of the table.
Oh, that was the handouts for the
Yeah.
public. This was distributed before.
This was distributed.
Where was it distributed?
Oh, Marty. Everybody.
Where was it? And I'm
All right,
getting tired of you making me sound like I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
When was this
Marty,
distributed?
I don't know, Marty. I
Last
don't remember.
Friday.
Relax. okay?
Last Friday.
Let me point out a couple
It
of things
wasn't
in the
in my
Commissioner's
inbox.
report
Not
that I
my
think are
box.
important. Marty?
This is important.
All right, let me cover a couple of things. We already know the bridges were included in the public easements, okay, and that's good. We know that there's a new president and vice president and officers down at the county. Bud Church is the president, Linda is the vice president. The local development council appointments. This local development council is a 15-person council required by state law, House Bill 3, that requires that the county form this local development council to review the plans that the county has for the distribution of funds that are derived from slots. And it says right here, there's 7 community residents and 4 nearby business representatives. But the law says, if you break the law out, it says that they must be from the immediate proximity of the facility's location. Okay? So it's important, I believe, that we talk to our county commissioners and we identify people who can represent us well on this council and make an effort to get on the council from Ocean Pines. Okay? So we need to think about that. That's important. And the rest of the stuff is important, but I don't think it's, we need to talk about it here. Okay, what I'd like to do is depart from the agenda and allow Mr. Moyer to make a presentation on the non-ethanol fuel cells.
Hey, Bill.
Dan?
I gotta figure out where I can set this puppy up here.
You want to do it down this way so we can get this thing on the camera?
There's an easel behind the door.
Hey, that'll work.
You get yours tomorrow today. I bet you just got.
I didn't get it. It was showed by email, I'm told.
That'll work.
I don't get an email. I know we can't. Everybody got it. I never saw it until the Sunday. Okay, well, that's not a fair statement. A little bit over, a little more. You know, because the in crowd might have got it earlier.
Hope I can make this work, guys.
Well, some people obviously got it earlier.
Are you okay
That's
there?
fine, yes.
You won't be able to see any of this. Want me
That's
to
all
read
right,
it to you?
that's okay.
My name is Stan Moyer. I live at 31 Alton Point in Turner's Landing, neighbor of Bill's, in fact. I'm here to talk today about ethanol. Ethanol is not what we're putting in our cars and boats. Ethanol is the additive to the gasoline we put in our cars and boats. Ethanol is, in fact, ethyl alcohol. It's the same stuff that's in tequila and bourbon. Quite simply. And frankly, when I'm done today, I hope you'll agree you'd rather drink it than put it in your vehicles. Let's talk about myths and facts. Myths. Alcohol is harmless. Myth. Alcohol saves the environment. Ethanol, rather. Ethanol is more efficient than gasoline. Ethanol is more economical than gasoline. Ethanol is required by law. Every one of those statements, absolutely and unequivocally, is a myth. It's a myth perpetuated by people we'll talk about in a minute. Let's look at some facts. Efficiency. Ethanol has 30 to 40% fewer BTUs, British thermal units, per gallon. Briefly, what that means is it would take that much more ethanol to provide the same energy in any use as gasoline, unadulterated gasoline, regular gasoline. Miles per gallon on all of your automobiles, miles per gallon are reduced by not less than 5%, and if you have a Hemi like my Jeep has, it's closer to 20%. It can't be fixed.
So
nothing you can do driving your car will cause that.
What is then the difference between we had
Dutch,
before we had
hey,
the other
Dutch,
ethanol?
hey, Dutch.
Or- or-
You're not
I thought
allowed
the question to
No,
answer what the
no,
guy-
you're not going to ask a question.
All right.
Can I take the questions at the end?
You may.
Oh,
Okay,
I'm
Dutch, if
sorry.
you'll hold on
From the
then.
board or from the public?
So efficiency, absolutely not. By the way, these are not my opinions. I will give credits at the end of this so you'll know that I didn't make this up on the fly. Economical, myth. Ethanol and ethanol mixed gasoline is more economical. In other words, we have a renewable energy source which will create our independence from Saudi Arabia and Middle Eastern countries. Absolutely not true. It takes, this is the most conservative estimate I could find, 1.3 gallons of fossil fuel in total to create 1 gallon of ethanol. And then 1 gallon of ethanol is mixed with 10 gallons of gasoline under current applications. There's a 54 cents per gallon federal subsidy for ethanol. So what appears to be cheaper probably isn't so much cheaper. Any of you paying less for your fuel than before? No. The distributors are the ones that get this benefit. Additional transport cost. Ethanol cannot be mixed, cannot be blended at the refinery. Cannot. It must be shipped separately to the local terminal, local meaning, you know, where the trucks come from, and it's mixed at the terminal. It's blended at the terminal. Becomes important later on. But when you have to transport the stuff twice, clearly it's not going to be cheaper than transporting unadulterated gasoline once. Archer Daniels Midland from Minnesota, Cargill, and ConAgra are the biggest beneficiaries of the pressures on the federal government. They are the primary lobbying force for ethanol production in the United States. You might also be aware, and this is just kind of a background, that Brazilian ethanol, which is made of sugar cane, not sugar itself, but the sugar cane stock, is far, far cheaper to build, far cheaper to produce, and in fact has many of the qualities of gasoline. Corn-produced ethanol has none of them. Again, it's delicious, makes you stumble and think you dance better, but it does not work in automobiles or boats or any other kind of internal combustion engine. Is it required by law? Absolutely not. There are 6 states in the nation that require ethanol blend at fuel pumps on highways. And I can't name them all, but Florida, Hawaii, and California are 3 of them. Middle states, you know, the Great Plains states have the other 3. Those states that require ethanol, under a law, ethanol in their fuel mix, also have, every one of them has a specific exemption for boats, for marinas. Now, that exemption, is it being taken advantage of? Absolutely not. If you do a Google search for ethanol lawsuits in the United States, you'll find 1.5 million entries. Now, I'm not going to tell you there are 1.5 million lawsuits, because clearly there are not. The way Google works is you're going to see a lot of redundancies. If 5 newspapers cover the suit, then you'll see 5 entries. But those lawsuits are about the fact that people who have the alternative to not put that fuel at fuel docks for boats are doing it anyway, not warning the boaters of the dangers. And these lawsuits are in their infancy now. California and Florida have 2 huge class action suits. Now, class action suits have a habit of coming through pretty well for people because so much money is at stake. Ethanol is not harmless, and it is not required by law. Point of order, EISA, the Energy Independence and Stability or Security Act of 2007, which George Bush signed into law, makes no mention or requirement for ethanol whatsoever. That is the law to which the EPA points and says we've got to use it. We don't. And in Fruitland, Maryland, just south of Salisbury, you can fill up your collector car. If any of you have a high-performance car built in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and early 80s, well, the early 80s there weren't any, you really need to go use that stuff because it'll save your engines. And it's available on highways in some places. Usually it's independent retailers who sell it. But understand, no matter what you hear, do your research. It is not required by law. Maryland is not a mandatory E10 state, E10 being the ethanol gasoline mix. It is not required, period, end of discussion. And any distributor that tells you otherwise is simply taking the easy way out because he makes more money selling blended junk. Let's talk about the environment. Even the EPA had to admit in the 3rd Federal Higher Court, Appeals Court, that E10 provides more smog per gallon burn than regular gasoline does. More, and then the lower BTUs means you're burning more of it. So the smog increase is actually more than just the per gallon smog increase. you're burning considerably more of this ethanol to get to the same distance down the road or on the water. So it is not environmentally friendly. You look again on the internet, you look at those lawsuits, and a high number of them are from places like the DNR in Maryland suing the ethanol people for the smog problem. Harmless. Is it harmless? And this is what worries me the most and why I'm here today. First, ethanol. Ethyl alcohol is a solvent. You might think gasoline is a solvent, but in some cases it is. Not like ethanol. Ethanol eats and corrodes very important parts of your boat. Your entire fuel system is jeopardized by the use of ethanol. It attracts water, 10 times the attraction to water as normal garden variety 87 octane gasoline. Many of you, I look around, some of you are my age, Dutch, you probably are. We used to have problems with our lawnmowers because water would accumulate, or a snow blower or something like that that didn't get used frequently. We'd go down to the store and buy something called dry gas. We put a little in the tank, shake it up, and the stuff worked. Dry gas was ethanol, pure and simple. And what it did was it attracted the water into emulsion, which in turn could mix with the gasoline, and it could burn, albeit not well, but you could start and get it going. Water won't burn. It is prohibited in aircraft. By federal law, you cannot put this junk in an airplane. Now, the jets most of you fly don't use gasoline. The airplanes I fly do, in fact, use gasoline. Avgas cannot have ethanol in it. It's just not a point of discussion. Nobody wants these things falling out of the sky because of the kinds of problems we have. Phase separation. The number one problem boaters have is called phase separation. That's where the emulsion of gasoline and ethanol starts to separate. A gallon of gasoline can hold, with ethanol, can hold about 4 teaspoons of water before phase separation occurs. Once that 5th teaspoon of water gets into that mix, phase separation occurs. And you can actually see it. I brought some pictures here. I don't know where I put them, but I'll pass them around. The phase separation allows the gasoline to float to the top and the water ethanol emulsion to the bottom. When it gets high enough in water concentration, you get a gel-like substance called sludge. That sludge is at the bottom of the tank. The pickups on your boats, lawnmowers, things like that, are at the bottom of the tank. That's where you pick the fuel from. So that sludge gets in. It can cause inconvenient damage right down to catastrophic damage. It cannot be reversed. In other words, somebody's selling you some miracle snake oil cure, saying put this in and it's going to fix it. It will not fix it. Once phase separation has occurred, you can put it in a paint mixer and shake it for hours. Let it set for 5 minutes, it's going to separate. It can't be undone. 3 months at 70% humidity will bring you up to the phase separation point. 3 months of ethanol, 10% E10 stored at 70% will bring you up to the emulsion, the high emulsion level, and it'll start to phase separate. It's actually weeks at 90% humidity, literally measured in weeks. Now you might say, well, many of you have boats. Well, mine didn't do that. It depends on where your boat's stored. You get sunlight followed by cool. All of these things cause water condensation in your tank. Well, why doesn't it happen in your car? 2 primary reasons. The automobile gas tanks are not vented to the open air like a boat gas tank is. A boat gas tank is vented to the open air for safety reasons. And second, your car rarely will have 3 months old gas in it. For that matter, most of us can't get by with 2-week-old gas in the automobile. That's the primary reason why cars have not tended to have the problem. I'm going to shock Bill in a minute with a fact I'm going to give him, but cars do have some problems. Boats have chronic problems with this stuff. Very low shelf life, and it's blended locally, partly because the ethanol is so volatile, it picks up so much water that they do have to do the blending locally, and partly because once it's blended, the shelf life drops precipitously, literally precipitously. Many of you, years before ethanol was a problem, discovered that old gas didn't work well. This stuff becomes old at a much, much accelerated rate. Auto recalls, Lexus, 2006 to 2008, the entire fuel rail systems in Lexus. Now, people don't buy those to have them sitting around. The entire fuel rail systems were actually being corroded in the Lexus very high-end luxury cars because of the use of 10% ethanol, or E10 gasoline. BMW's had recalls. Ford has had fire-based recalls because flapper valves were being eaten up by the ethanol content in gasoline. Car problems, you end up with lower miles per gallon. We talked about that. Everybody in here is experiencing that unless you pick your fuel up down at Fruitland or wherever else it can be sold without ethanol. You have reduced performance. Most of us aren't kids anymore. We're not hot dogging our cars around. And then reduced performance is just not something we notice much. I'm an old race driver. I do notice it, and I hate it. But I don't have the patience to go down to Fruitland and waste my money to buy regular gasoline. If you use your car daily or pretty frequently, those are pretty much the limit of your problems. Unless you have a real high-end car like Bill, and then you may have another problem. Let's talk about boat problems, which is the very reason I'm here. We have some decisions, some choices we can make. We've already made choices. I'm here to encourage us to make a different kind of choice. First and easiest of all the boat problems created are fuel filters. And people say, well, that's no big deal. And it really isn't. A fuel filter by itself is no big deal. But it's a big deal if you got your grandchildren on the boat, you go out on the hottest day of the year, there are a lot of people bouncing around and your engine quits. It becomes a real big deal, unless you have a spare filter on board and you know what to do. Most people don't have either of those. The other thing is, the filter, when you lift the hood on a typical outboard, you'll see a little water separator filter. And people say, I can just change that, everything's going to be fine. I'm going to show you a picture later that suggests, no, you're not going to be fine. Because of the corrosive effect of E10, it gets into a high pressure filter system, which requires somebody like me to get your engine half apart to get to that, to repair it, because it's not intended to be a consumable item for the end user. Fuel pumps. The next likely thing to go is a fuel pump. Fuel pumps on most outboards, especially the small, I'm going to say 60, 70 horsepower and under, have a bladder type fuel pump or a flapper valve type fuel pump. The rubber in those just corrodes, dies, and you have no fuel pump. It's particularly true if it's an older engine, older meaning 5 years or more old. You have carburetors. Rebuilding carburetors this summer cost me, I'm in the business, but it cost me thousands of dollars because my primary business is I'm a boat captain. I do long distance hauls. I've done over 100 ICW runs. I've done the Great Lakes many, many times, delivering vessels from the factories in Wisconsin down to Florida. But as the business slowed down, as the economy slowed down, I started doing instruction. People like yourselves who say, I want to be able to put that boat in a tiny little space. In fact, Marty was down at a bar one time I came in, and Marty thought he was going to have to move his boat because there was no place to put the boat in. And I showed Marty, it's no problem. You put it anywhere you want to. Well, the business picked up very quickly. People said, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to put my boat away in the wind. I want to put my boat away without embarrassing myself, et cetera, et cetera. I had customers lined up. It was in the early spring. As they started calling me, let's meet on Sunday, let's meet on Saturday, let's meet on Tuesday. I lost 7 customers because the boats wouldn't start. And that's when I started fixing them myself, because every spring the backup at North Bay, at Route 113 boat sales, et cetera, the backup is enormous because of people with these ethanol problems. Some of the problems were avoidable, most really weren't. But the fact is, my customers couldn't use their boat. I couldn't teach them how to use it for weeks because of the early spring backup of repairs. From a mechanic's point of view, the repairs aren't horrible because you start down this list. Until you get to here, rebuilding carburetors. A 90 horsepower Honda outboard, not a huge motor, has 4 carburetors on it. So you're talking about rebuilding 4 carburetors. It's a lot of labor. And then it really shouldn't be done on the back of your boat. There's some characters who say they'll do it. It shouldn't be done. I mean, if you ever look at the carburetor, you take it apart, there's some parts in there that are practically watch parts. I mean, tiny, tiny things. And my big fingers, I'm going to drop them in the water, and I have to go buy stuff at my own expense. So you haul the boat, get it to where it can be worked on. 4 carburetors have to be rebuilt, and then they have to be synchronized. This is no small item. And yet, the difference in the performance of the boat will be enormous for a short time until you start putting the ethanol back in it. Fuel injectors, totally different story. With fuel inject, oh, by the way, those 4 carburetors I'm talking about, that's just a small engine. When it gets to be a big engine, it's a huge problem. Fuel injectors, more and more of us as we buy new engines have fuel injection. They ain't fixable like these are. These are the kind of thing guys like me take in the garage, take apart, clean, put back together, put new seals in it, and I'm good to go. The electronic fuel injections today are wonderful when they work. When they don't work, you literally replace them at hundreds and hundreds of dollars a piece, 1 injector per cylinder, and then you can send in your old injectors to be remanufactured, and you can have them as spares. No small deal here. Fuel injectors, if you ever look at the holes in a fuel injector that squirts fuel into your cylinder head, you can't, the human eye can't even see the holes. I mean, it turns the fuel into a mist. The high pressure pumps, that's the part I was telling you about the filters earlier. The high pressure pumps are hidden from view from the consumer, and they literally have to be dealt with by a mechanic. And they have very, very fine filters. Filters so fine it looks like silk. Flapper valves, talked about that a little earlier. Boats and cars both have flapper valves in a number of places. A flapper valve is simply, imagine a tube with a valve that lets flow go one way. When it tries to back up, the rubber just stops it. Well, when the rubber is eaten away, you lose that check valve capability. Fuel fittings. Many of the boats have, rather than metal, they have plasticized fuel filters, like the little elbows that you'll see and so forth. If you ever look in there, those are dying because the binder, the rosins that create the strength of that plastic is being eaten up by ethanol. Cars, by the way, typically do not have that. It's a captive engine. They use metal parts. Boats, to get them lighter, are using plastic parts. Fuel lines, just your regular rubber hose. I was telling Bill when we first talked about this months ago, I picked up a weed whacker motor. It actually is hooked to a, I hate to say this, but it's a weed whacker powered blender. And it's kind of a fun item, and I don't use it much, but I wanted to use it and show some friends, taking them out for a boat ride. I picked it up just by the base of the thing, you know, where the mixer sits up here. And all this black stuff was on my hands. I looked down, and every pipe, every fuel line under there had disintegrated. It looked whole until I touched it. And it was almost like ash. It just fell apart in my hand. So obviously I wasn't able to use it that day. When I went to fix it, I was going to take the plastic tank off. It just crumbled in my hand. And many of you have seen a weed whacker, you know, the little plastic tank looks like a milk bottle. That will just fall apart if ethanol is stored in it. Fuel lines sounds like it's inconvenient, and it is, but it's also dangerous. You start to let fuel leak around an internal combustion engine out in the hot sun, explosions can and do happen. Some of the many lawsuits I told you about earlier have to do with just that very phenomenon. Fuel tanks themselves, if you have a fiberglass tank, and I doubt anyone in here has a fiberglass tank. One of the best boat builders in the nation, actually 2 of the best, build their tanks of fiberglass. But they're big boats, and they typically run on diesel, which is not having this problem. But if you do have a fiberglass tank, it cannot be used. Even the American Boating and Yacht Association or something like that is saying you've got to take that tank out. If you've ever looked at an integrated tank in a boat, taking it out means you probably ought to donate that boat and get a tax advantage, because you won't believe the damage you're going to do to the boat, the high cost of getting that tank out and then replacing it. It cannot be used. End of discussion, because what's going to happen is that ethanol interacts with the rosins in the fiberglass, that becomes liquefied, it gets into the engine, and you're not talking about fixing anything then. You got a catastrophic failure. The engine will be replaced. There's just no option there. The aluminum tanks, which probably, how many people in here have a pontoon boat or know someone with a pontoon boat? They almost all have aluminum tanks. The aluminum tank allows the ethanol water mix to mix with it, creating aluminum oxide in suspension. The aluminum oxide starts to eat away, and at the weld area, you can start to have weak spots and, again, fuel leaks. Fuel leaks on typical pontoon boats are not going to be a huge problem. If you have an inboard-outboard with a aluminum tank, you have an explosion hazard. That's really remarkable. Then you can have catastrophic failure. Our own president here had catastrophic failure caused by the use of ethanol fuel with 35 hours on the motor. Now, those of you who know Bill probably know that first, he's not a hot dog boater. He's not out there playing around each and every day. And second, he's not going to really push his boat hard. 35 hours on a brand new motor, which, by the way, was a replacement for another one that had blown up, right? And how many hours was that?
About the same.
So Bill's got 70 hours out of $12,000 to $14,000 worth of motors. But catastrophic failure means, you know, your friend, the local wizard, isn't going to put it back together. I went down to look at Bill's boat. He had a hole in the block that big where a connecting rod had broken and just pushed right through the block. He was, in case you're thinking he was out pulling, you know, 12 water skiers or something, he was 100 yards from his dock and managed to get blown in, fortunately, by the wind. And last, but by no means least, if you have newer product, you look at your warranty, it says it is certified okay for 10% ethanol. Let that be 11% ethanol, you have no warranty. You can buy test kits for as little as $29 to test for the content of ethanol, not the existence of it and the percentage of it. Every test I've done has been, some have been like 8.5%, others have gone up to 14% ethanol content. The point is, if something were to happen to my 225 Honda, which is under warranty, and I have, it's about $17,000 for that motor, and they find that there's 11% ethanol in there, and we don't control that. We can't sit around and test every tank full that is delivered, but if they find 11%, they are not obliged to stand by their warranty. And by the way, only under pressure from the Environmental Protection Agency did they even warranty anything with 10% ethanol in it. There were huge pressures by the Environmental Protection Agency to even allow those warranties to occur. Those of you who are familiar with high-performance cars, AMG, which was purchased by Mercedes, it was a company that turned garden variety Mercedes into high-performance cars. AMG didn't want to sell any cars in the United States, or warranty any cars in the United States. And again, under pressure, this was when it was Daimler Chrysler, they caved in, changed the horsepower dramatically, detuned the cars so that they could use ethanol and still have a warranty on them. So my recommendation, based on this and tons of research, go talk to your mechanics, do the internet work, sell only pure gasoline. We're legally able to do it. There is no reason not to do it from a lawful point of view. It's going to cost more. And so I want to talk about costs because we live in a cost-sensitive community. I'm retired. A lot of us are retired. Costs are very important to us. The average boat use, and I'm being damn liberal here, is 100 hours a year. I am damn liberal when I say that. I see used boats constantly with 17 to 20 hours a year on them. But go work with me on the 100 hours a year. The average consumption, 4 gallons per hour. And many of you aren't the tech nut that I am, but I can tell you that my 225 Honda is doing considerably less over hundreds of hours than 4 gallons per hour. So if you just use these liberal assumptions, you'll use 400 gallons of fuel per year. If it costs 40 cents more per gallon, and again, I'm being quite liberal, I think it's closer to 30 cents, but if it's 40 cents more per gallon, you'll spend $160 more per year if you use your boat 5 times as much as you currently do, and you pay higher than I think you're going to pay, $160 a year. That's insurance on a product that cheapest, it's in tens of thousands of dollars. Tens of thousands of dollars. And that's preserving your engine. And not just your engine. I towed 4 people back from out at sea just in the last season with engine failures. Got to the point I start taking tools out with me to see if I can get them coming back, because once I'm there under tow, it's a slow process, and I charge by the hour. And I'm doing this as a retirement job. I'm not trying to rip anybody off. So I start taking extra, I call them, do you have filters on board? Because I'll bring the filters out, see if I can get that going. But families out there, just cruising up and down in front of the beach. It's just terrible. It's a terrible use of a day when you've got children on board, family on board, and the boat dies at the worst possible time. Fortunately for my contacts and my customers, none have died in the inlet. Losing an engine in the inlet at the wrong time can be a treacherous business. The do-nothing costs. So I told you, $160 a year per boat, or if they buy all the fuel from here and use their boat far, far more than they ever did in the past. Additives. Almost everybody that buys from us today is putting the additives in. If you use it for those amount of hours I've talked about, and you buy your additive at wholesale and not from us, you're going to pay $50 a year for that. The Raycor filter system. Almost all of the dealers, and I'm doing it on 100% of my customers' boats, they're putting in a Raycor big filter about this big around, about that tall, with a clear bowl at the bottom so that you can watch the water accumulate and drain it. You mount it outside the engine so it can be seen every day. Installed, just the parts alone, that's over $100. That's a one-time charge. Mechanic price. For most of you who don't carry tools everywhere you go and you want a mechanic helping you to get your engine started, to get it running right, you're talking not less than $80 an hour. And I'm being very conservative there. Parts to do the basic repairs, you know, the filters, the fuel pumps, anywhere from $200 to $2,000 if we get into injectors. A new engine, someplace between $2,000 and $22,000. The sources for the facts that I've given you this morning are Business Week. Throughout the month of May, they had articles almost every week on the dangers. In fact, one of them was called Ethanol, the Great American Scam. Boat US, which is the largest boat organization in the United States, its membership is probably in the millions. Lexus, BMW, Mercury Marine, Honda Marine, University of California, they're the ones that discovered this whole issue of the smog being far, far worse with ethanol than with pure gasoline. The Department of Energy, the Environmental Protection Agency, EISA 2007, that's the applicable federal law, and then the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, the U.S. Third Circuit Court of Appeals. So I said I have time for questions?
Yes. Anybody on the board have any comments or questions? Dave?
Just a couple of things. First of all, I'm not a boater, and it's very interesting. And thank you very much for coming. Some things that we've heard before your presentation. Ethanol is or is not distributed in the state of Maryland. I mean
non-ethanol.
Non-ethanol.
I don't know, Dave. I don't
okay,
know.
we've heard that it's not. I mean, that was part of a handout we received either from the MAC or...
It's going to be, if I can expand on that, I don't know. I suspect that whoever told you that's correct. It's going to be a demand-based circumstance because the distributor makes more money distributing ethanol because of the federal government subsidies than he does distributing pure gasoline. So to the extent the distributor can bully you into buying things that you don't have to buy, he's making a profit, you're not benefiting in any way, you're actually hurting your customers. I know that Sunset Marina has non-ethanol fuel. I don't know where they get it from. Every marina that I talk to is telling their customers to go down there, which is another reason. I'm a citizen here. I've been here for 6 years on and off, and now full-time resident for the last couple. I much prefer to buy our fuel and to support the community in any way I can. I do not have, my customer list now is probably over 100. That's me and 100 customers that no longer buy from the yacht club, and I do use a lot of fuel because it's my living. And I think that as the distributors feel more and more demand, remember, the distributor doesn't have to do anything special to give us non-ethanol. He simply has to not mix the crap in. It's not much more complicated than that. He can't take it out once it's in. So I don't know what the local distributors are doing, and we do deal with local distributors, I'm sure.
Well, I'm not, by the way, crediting these things as facts. I mean, they're just
I'm assuming
information that we've received. Okay.
But we live so close to Delaware.
But I believe what I read was that we can only buy non-ethanol fuel. Well, can only be bought in Pennsylvania, A, and B. There was again not a fact, but an opinion that Maryland viewed this as a loophole and was going to preclude using non-ethanol
that is not a fact.
Fuel.
I can assure you.
But am I correct, Bill, in what I read?
That's a myth. That is what he says is a myth. Our job is to find out if it's a myth or not.
Yeah.
The research I gave you is of 6 o'clock yesterday.
Bob?
Yeah. Stan, just just question, just for all of us to understand your background. I mean, I've met you before, so I know your background, but just for all of us, because you gave a lot of facts. Your background, other than, you're a boat captain now, but, I mean,
I
you've got a lot
retired
of
as the head of
background.
Service International for IBM.
But you've been boating for,
I've got 5,000 hours of time, ocean-going master. I'm a officer in the U.S. Merchant Marine. I have a 100-ton ocean-going license with a towing endorsement. I retired 9 years ago. So after my international work with IBM, I began boating, and I've been a boater for 30-some years.
well, that's my point. You have an extensive background with this.
Well, not only that, by choice, not by trade, I'm a mechanic. I won't let anybody touch any mechanical item I own. I do my own work.
Thank you.
Pete?
I'm not an experienced boater. I'm a relatively new boater.
Well, let me give you a card, Pete.
And probably the least mechanical person in the room.
Second.
But no, he sailed.
No, you did. I think maybe third.
In any event, what little reading I've done suggests to me that this is a huge problem with the boating community. And I'm surprised that we haven't previously considered this.
Me too.
My question to you, and it's not really to you, it's maybe to Tom. Your primary recommendation is we sell only non-ethanol gasoline. Now, my
correct.
question is, are we capable at our marina of having two kinds of gasoline available?
We have 2 tanks. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I'm sure we have 2 tanks.
Yeah.
My question is, are we able to do both? And
Tom, if we have 2 tanks, we probably can. There's nothing at the pumping level that would change. The only reason I say sell only one is as a practical matter. I think as the GM, you'd find it a nightmare to do demand planning. And again, that's why I went into this, what does it really cost? 30 cents a gallon sounds like a backbreaker until you stop to think that a high user, 1 in 2,000 people that pull up there use it 100 hours a year, would pay $160 total. So it requires some community education.
okay, so we don't really.
But you wouldn't have to have
We don't
them.
really know the answer, but we can find out the answer.
It seems
And I'll
logical
just,
to me that
I know we need to
it would
move
be
on. Now, I thank you very much for bringing this to our attention today, and I think the timing is rather important, is it not? Because if we're going to do this, we need to do it for next season. We can't put this off until April or May, decide what we're going to do. I think now is the time over the next, I don't know what it is, month or so, to make any such decision if we're going to do this and offer it, so.
And Pete, I would also suggest that we should treat it not as a community service, although it really is, but as a marketing ploy. People are going down from Delaware, and I saw this when I filled my boat up, and I think I told you about it, Bill, or maybe it was Marty I told about it. People are driving down from Delaware with these jerry cans. You know what a jerry can is, the old World War II thing? Filling up pickup truckloads of jerry cans down at Sunset Marina, going back up to Indian River Inlet and selling it to their friends to put in their boats. I mean, the demand we can create, I don't know how much business we get. I have no idea, and I don't really want to get into it. But I know that if we promoted ethanol-free gasoline here, I think the yacht club could benefit from the people who come by if we provide tie-up parking for them to go grab lunch and so forth. The point is, we can make this an attraction. It's not just a little bit more money for the fuel. It's we can save your boat, it's very convenient, and you can get at least 100 of my customers back coming right here. Plus, I will work with the mechanics I know to tell people, that we have non-ethanol fuel. It's a marketing ploy, and we should use it.
I certainly understand the benefits financially to our community, but primarily in my mind, it's a service to our residents,
It mostly
our
is.
members. I mean, that's the big thing.
But we don't have to limit it to that.
Okay, fine.
2 years ago, I attended a Marine Activities Advisory Committee meeting, and the entire session was discussion about this, okay? And the answer was, well, the laws say we can't do it, and, boom, boom. It came up again, and they studied it, and they did supposedly an informal survey, and the voting members of Ocean Pines who they talked to said, oh, well, it's cost too much, we really want to do it, so we're going to look at it again in the spring. It's too late.
Too late.
Tom, I would like you to provide us at the next meeting
Fact sheet.
information
Fact sheet.
as to how we can do this. Not how we can't do it, not the reasons why we can't do it, but why we can do it. And I think it'd be a great benefit to our membership,
Exactly.
okay? And you tell me more than I ever wanted to know about that.
Me too.
But I think as far as we're concerned, we're convinced that there's a lot to know about it. And I think it was worth the time spent.
I think Stan, you did a great job on the presentation.
Tom, thank you. I'm just going to leave, I won't talk about them, I just made some notes on the bottom. These are some photos I pulled of the kinds of residue and damage caused. This actually is from an engine identical to mine. And that's the high-pressure filter buried deep in the engine. If you'll just pass these around, I don't need them back. These are just, and that's just the distribution.
Stan, do you know of any voters who think ethanol is a good thing to put in their engine?
I don't know any mechanics that think ethanol is a good thing to put in any place other than, on the rocks. But it's not a problem in cars like it is in boats.
Do all auto fuels contain ethanol?
No, they do not.
Makes your gas better, right?
Again, it's not a federal mandate. That's the greatest misunderstanding of all.
I've seen signs, some do, I know, but I don't.
Well, Maryland, God bless them, at least has a law, that's a truth in advertising law, they must mark the pumps.
Yeah.
Because ethanol is dangerous. You look at most of the content of the class action suit, it has to do with the distributors and the oil companies themselves not telling the buying public of the costs and dangers of using ethanol. Remember, it's there for the express benefit of the distributors and blenders, not for you. You get nothing from it.
And the farmers. And the farmers.
And they're the people who are really
Corn,
pressing.
that's really
All
what
right,
it is.
thank you, Stan.
Bill, thank
We're
you.
going to move on.
Stan, thank you very much.
No, I'm not going to open the meeting up to any more discussion on this. We got to move on. Stan, you'd be more than happy to have anybody call you and get any more information, right?
Absolutely, and boat lessons and repairs and that kind of thing.
All right, Stan Boyer.
Oh, let me give you my card.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the general manager's report.
Just pass it.
Okay, we've already discussed Pinehurst. That was going to be the first thing on my report. But I've actually done a draft letter that I'd like the board to review for consideration by the, not for today, but just, and behind that, Peter, picture.
Take this home with it?
Take it home with you and provide any input you.
Quick question on Pinehurst. The gentleman handed out the copy of a plat that had markings on it. I'm just wondering, are those platted drainage easements?
We'll have to look at the survey to get that
They doesn't look like, I don't know, Marty, it doesn't look like, doesn't have the arrows on it that I would expect.
I mean, if
to
it's
see
not a
there.
platted drainage easement,
Right out of the county.
There we go.
This is Tom's addendum to his
Is that a Lynch survey? You refer to a Lynch survey?
no, that's a
That's a flat.
county plat.
on Beecham Road.
From Maryland State Archives.
I think to get into the details of this is when he has this detailed meeting with everybody involved, maps, elevations, and everything is going to be in this meeting, right, Tom?
Right.
Just to, and clarify again, Tom does have an action to schedule to arrange that meeting.
Right. I've asked county officials to schedule, or to coordinate their schedules and see if we can come up with a common date.
And Carrie Nelson, Public Works, has got all kinds of data on elevations and everything, and we need to examine the validity of what Mr. Furlow has to tell us to make sure that we do in fact know that his solution is viable or not, all those kind of things. And we're going to get into that.
Okay, 10-year plan task force. Task force is working on specifications for yacht club renovations. We'll be meeting on Friday, this coming Friday, to review those. We're also working on completing our 10-year plan final report for the board. We're targeting February 20th as the day to present that report to the board. Wood duct drainage, 12 of the 17 catch basins are in right now, as well as 3 main drain pipes. The weather has been a real challenge for the contractor, but I think we're somewhere around 50% complete at this point. We're still awaiting the formal ruling of the judge on the SPN case. As I mentioned last month, there was a motion for judgment notwithstanding the verdict that was filed. We expect to have that have a decision on that fairly short soon. IRS versus OPA, no trial date's been scheduled, and the YMCA trial is scheduled for January 4th. Swim and racket pool deck reconstruction, as you're aware, the decks have all been removed. We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow to review the drawings before finalization. Specifications will be circulated in January. Our goal is to get work started somewhere around February 15th, and the permitting process is already underway. On the agenda today, I'm asking the board to consider approving the golf fees for next year. My intent is to try and get those packager rates approved and in the marketing materials for the golf packagers to attract outside play. I'm recommending no increases in the rates or daily fees and some adjusted rate packages to better reflect seasonal demand. In making the recommendations, we took into consideration previous committee recommendations to maintain sales programs for 2 to 3 years, to improve familiarity with programs and gauge their success, recognize a nationwide decline in golf sales related to general economic conditions, and evaluate the rates of local competitors to ensure competitiveness. The 2010-2011 budget, we put a great deal of time into the budget this month in developing the financial plan. Our deadline for submitting or circulating it to the Budget and Finance Committee and copies to the board as well is December 23rd. We will begin our meetings with the Budget and Finance in early January with presentations to the committee by each department. And finally, on behalf of the management and the entire staff, I'd like to extend to the board as well as the membership a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, and all good wishes for the holiday season.
Thank you. Any questions? Marty?
On the golf fee approval, you got the 3 things that were considered. Did we give any consideration at all to the offer from, or suggestion of whatever it was from Golf Profit Builders that I don't think's been placed in front of the board yet?
No, have not.
Okay.
What specifically are you talking about, Marty? Just so we know.
There was a letter back in August from Matt Galvin of Golf Profit Builders that, to my knowledge, hasn't ever been answered.
What did the letter say?
I don't have a copy of it. It said that they wanted to offer us a management
contract
of our
management contract.
I guess here, let me make it simple. Have we given any consideration to outside management?
Not at this point, no.
Okay. How about? Do we have any alternatives this year, or is it just approve this, or is it here's a couple of options? You know, I'd hope this golf task force would come back with something. For example, we need more members. Everybody knows that. Have we ever considered a younger golfer's fees being lower? Like they do at all private country clubs.
Actually, no, we have not. Here's what I want. Here's the important thing for me now. I want to make sure that I get the packages rates into the marketing material so we can attract outside play. Going hand in hand with that, I recommended that we not increase the memberships for our members. But it's not as immediate as a problem for me to delay the memberships as it is I want to get those packager rates out.
And I didn't say anything about raising memberships cost. I'm suggesting we might lower it for certain age brackets to increase the numbers. I mean, if we have 300 if we have the same number of members next year we had last year, we're in real trouble. Has there been any consideration to opening the golf course up as a fee-only golf course?
We've talked about it, but we have not come back with our recommendation.
We're not looking at any alternatives other than.
Are you finished, Marty?
Yeah.
As I understand what you're trying to do today, it's to seek our approval for moving forward with the rates for outside play primarily, right? And as I, again, understand it, and I've observed this over the last several years, this is something that typically takes place in this month of December by the board to allow Ocean Pines to put forward to packagers and others that if you wait until the spring, it's too late to do. The budget process is still underway. Tom mentioned a moment ago that the budget is still being worked on. I've not seen anything. The Budget and Finance Committee will, together with the board, receive it, I believe, on December 23rd, as you mentioned. And so whatever's in there is in there, and I have not seen that yet. But we can decouple, and this board has historically decoupled this particular decision from the budget process. So I think the budget process itself will allow interaction with the golf supervisor, discussion of fees, membership categories, that sort of thing, that need not be discussed today in order to grant go-ahead with the proposed rate structure for outside play, group play, package play. And again, this board has historically done that in December, while historically it also approves the full budget in February. So there's a process that is separate and distinct from this particular. If we wait until February to do this, again, as I understand it, and historically, it's too late.
Okay. Dave?
Of the fees, I'm only referring not to the membership fees now. Which one of these are most crucial to getting out early? I believe
It's that entire,
only, you say the entire thing?
the entire list that you're pointing at right now are the packager rates that we publish in the marketing materials that go out with Pam's Golf and the Ocean City Golf Getaway.
That's the package rate.
Yeah.
So in other words, the package rate is what's critical.
That's
Right.
good.
I mean, we could, following up on what Pete said, adjust the public or rack rates as we, that can be considered. And similarly for the residents and guests and the local discounts and so forth, those can all be tweaked. The package rate is what you want to get in concrete.
Right.
And similarly, I understand the rationale for keeping the, I mean, it might be a historic first to keep the members' rates the same as they were last year. I don't know if we've done that before, actually 2 years in a row. But
And that was what was recommended last year.
but as always, there could be an argument for adjusting those too. But that can still happen.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question to that point. This page covers more, it has rack rates, package rates, loan discount rates, Ocean Pines residents and guest rates. Yeah, I just heard we're only approving one. Are we only approving one column, or are we?
I have a question on top of your question.
Yeah.
Is this anything to do with membership?
No, that's the next page.
Next page.
Oh, that's a different
Okay, all
page.
right, okay. Next page.
But this is saying that we're approving membership rates.
You make a motion to say, let's improve the package rates, and I'm good. I get done what I need to get done today.
Okay, so you mean just
The critical
this
part
page
is-
right here?
Right.
Okay?
The critical part is that we get something to look at between now and the time that our members want to start playing golf.
Okay,
Well,
but,
that, yeah.
The other comment,
That
I-
too.
if I may,
go ahead.
Marty asked a couple of questions about golf and of Tom, but I believe that golf task force is created to look at a whole lot of stuff related to golf, including memberships and structure and alternatives. And I believe that task force was in play for probably about 9 months. And I believe, Marty, you co-chaired that with Dave Stevens?
That's correct.
Okay.
But I also walked off the committee when the letter from Golf Profit Builders was buried. And it still hasn't seen the light of day today. Have you seen it?
I have.
I wasn't
Have
part of
you
that. I
seen-
wasn't part of that task
Yeah.
force. I don't know.
Well, I don't. I'm supposed to say that. Yeah.
Well, I've seen it, but I
To
didn't-
clarify what, just so everybody knows here, what we're talking about is that Golf Profit Builders offered us back whenever it was, look, we don't want to waste our time, but if you'd like, we would do a study and make you an offer to lease the place out.
Yeah.
And it was
I think it was to manage it for a fee.
To
I don't
manage it
think
for a fee.
To manage
Right,
it
to
for.
manage it, to run it.
But not specific, just a very general.
Right, but we don't want to waste our time
Well, we
if you
had-
won't consider it. And we didn't answer them, did we? Or you might answer them on the
No,
phone?
they've not heard a thing.
I don't know
According
whether
to
Tom.
Matt
answered.
I said would take a look at it. I didn't give him a.
You
I didn't
called
tell
him back, though.
Yeah.
I think the point is the Golf Profit Mill, that was a secondary, I don't want to even say recommendation, but they offered that as a secondary alternative. This is during our discussions with them. the face-to-face and as part of the thing. Wasn't their primary recommendation, given where we are, but they said, yes, you can go outside. That's another consideration.
Oh, by the way,
Yeah, and given that we also took their other primary recommendation, which didn't fit with it, which was to hire a director of golf marketing, and that was number one on their list, and we said, okay, let's do that. So we didn't do number two on their list.
I believe this was a separate letter
Even more
just addressing the...
They came back afterwards and said, hey,
And you had discussions
are you
with them?
considering
No.
are we considering number
Never
two?
answered.
No, we did not have
Okay.
discussion.
All right, well,
well, anyway,
do I have a motion to approve the fees on this page?
I would make that motion.
The package.
It's
Well,
public package, local discount, and Ocean Pines residents and guests. Is that what you're talking about?
yes.
Right.
I
All those?
would amend that to say just the package, because every other one can be under discussion just as the
It can
member
be.
rates can
All
be.
right, so the motion is,
All right, I would move the adoption of this golf fee schedule put in front of us today, excluding the final 3 columns that relate to Ocean Pines residents and guests.
so
That's not
public
final.
and
Public,
package.
System right
package,
here.
local discount.
Well, why do we need public? We don't have to
It's a
advertise
rack rate.
those now. That's a rack rate.
I'll withdraw my
We could
motion and
change it.
defer to anybody else who wants to make a
I would like to make a motion that we authorize the general manager to publish the package rates as shown on this page.
Do I have a second?
Well, wait a minute. Some of these package rates we're talking about are public rates. I mean, if a hotel comes in and wants a package, they want a price for somebody that wants to play in the spring, they want to know now. We can't tell them, well, wait
I agree
2
with-
months and we'll give you a price.
I agree with you. Also, I might point out, I'm no golf expert, but it seems to me that a new marketing director for golf is charged with the responsibility of getting additional outside play. That may be a group of 10 people. There are conventions, I am told. She will be attending various conventions, right? There may be a group of guys or girls who want to go to one of these conventions. It's outside the package hotel portfolio, and they say, hey, I got 16 guys that goes on this golf tour, and we get down to the Carolinas, and what do you have to offer?
So the public rate is...
That would not then be included in the package hotel rate. So I think,
That page.
I think this
the
entire
whole page is what I would, that's what my motion was.
That's what it was.
Okay, I agree. We can always adjust these other two later on.
Yeah,
So let me reinstate my motion, that we approve this entire package. If it dies for lack of a second, then
All right,
fine.
let's just follow some kind of
There was no
crazy...
second to the other motion.
Okay,
I just seconded it.
all right,
There was no second to either one. That's why I'm reintroducing it. Go ahead.
Say that again, please, Pete.
all right.
Establish the rates as...
We'll start from scratch here. What's your motion?
My motion is to approve the rates set forth on the schedule distributed in front of us, the entire schedule.
On this page, not the
Correct.
second page. Okay, do I
It's
have
called
a second?
Ocean Pines.
I second that.
Do we have any more discussion on
Yes.
that? Okay.
Question. Has the director of golf marketing had an input on this? Has she seen this?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so she's reviewed these rates?
Yes, yeah, these came from Harlan and Tony, and I didn't
Tony.
do these rates.
Well, I know you didn't, but I was just wondering if they...
Yes, she has.
The answer is a very definite yes, Tom?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, any more discussion? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I abstain. There's not enough information for me,
Okay.
so.
Okay, all opposed? One abstention.
Okay.
All right.
After the fact, Tom, how do these compare with last year?
Great question.
They're pretty they're pretty much stable. What happens with the package rates, we've adjusted them to certain seasonal demands where we might have been off a little bit.
To
but
be
they're-
more in competition? Okay,
Right,
good.
compared them against the competition. Yeah.
All right.
Compared them against competition and
Thank you, Tom. We'll move to old business now. Topic A, which is M1, Resolution M1, Compliance
M01.
Resolution, second reading. Okay? And everything we're going to reference is the November 13th version of that. All right? And what we did is we took a lot of input from the press, from individuals, from emails, from talking to people, and we had another meeting. This time we had Director Stevens, Director Gumsack, me, and the chair of the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee met again, to redraft and come up with some more wording, which we wordsmithed for a long time, and we thought we came up with some better versions, okay? The first one here is on page A1. All right? And what that is a drafting or redrafting of the authority paragraph in the 13 November version. You know, this has been routed to you all for information, and I'm going to make a motion at the end on this, but we'll change these as we need to. Are there any comments from the board on the authority paragraph? Does everybody agree on the authority paragraph?
Are copies of those available?
Are copies of those available?
Just in your packet.
Really?
And what we're talking about, Bill, here is amendments to the previously introduced resolution M01, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
To the this. You're right. This will be a
These-
change to the one that's dated
yeah.
November 13th. This has
Right.
been on the website, and it's been
Yes.
posted on the forum, as a matter of
So
fact. But I'm
each
sorry,
one of
you guys-
these-
I'm sorry
Each
you
one
all
of these
have that.
amendments, excuse me, each one, what you said a moment ago, each one of these is posted on the website.
Yes, it is.
So the answer to the question is, yes, it has been made available to the public.
Yes, but we don't have copies for him here, but it
That's
was
fine.
made available Thursday afternoon
And it was also sent out with the package to the press along with
and
the
set out with the
agenda.
package.
So the press has received copies of this material as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so I certainly think we can live with this authority paragraph. It really has no impact on the details and procedures or policies of the thing. David, you submitted this. This is a summary
Okay,
of yours.
do we want to read each one of these
Well,
amendments?
if you'd like to read it, go ahead.
We have three separate amendments, and I think
I think
individuals.
it's appropriate to read them since
Okay,
there's no
sure,
copies
go
for
ahead.
the audience. Okay. I move that we replace the existing paragraph 2 to draft resolution M01, version 2009-11-13, with the paragraph below, authority. The Ocean Pines Association derives its authority to establish, enforce, and interpret rules and regulations through its articles of incorporation, declaration of restrictions, and guidelines. These documents address the basic rules necessary to promote the common welfare of association members. They assign to the OPA Board of Directors responsibility for enforcement of these rules and the authority to delegate part of this task to association staff and committees. Along with this responsibility is the requirement for clear and consistent enforcement procedures and a policy for their execution.
Okay, so you're going to move to make that change.
I move to make that
Do we have a
change.
second?
I'll second it.
Do we have any further discussion on that? All right, I'll call the question on that one. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. We're moving to the second one, and I'm getting copies
Copies are being,
for people. This is, I'll read it because it's got my name submitted by, but it's really a compilation of what we all did. And it's a restatement of the policy. Paragraph 3, policy A. It is the policy of the Ocean Pines Association to exercise the authority provided above to rigorously and proactively enforce its covenants and restrictions. This enforcement authority shall be exercised to the extent possible in a uniform and fair manner based on the approved process and procedures outlined in this resolution. Further, the enforcement shall be conducted with due regard to the rights of individual members, particularly with respect to 1, courteous and respectful interchange that encourages voluntary compliance. 2, timely and effective notification of all pending actions affecting the issue under consideration. And 3, the opportunity to attend meetings where the alleged violation is discussed and to appeal rulings to the Board of Directors. The second major paragraph under policy B, it is the intent of the board that the general manager and CPI staff focus on those violations that significantly detract from the appearance of the surrounding neighborhood, present a health or safety risk, and/or detract from our members' property values. And the third paragraph, C, under that is, it is acknowledged and in an association as large as Ocean Pines, not all violations will be discovered or processed. The failure, however, to address any given violation shall not restrict the association from acting on others of the same nature. So that's the recommended change to the policy.
Is that a motion?
And I place that in motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, discussion. Marty?
Okay, I'm okay with everything except based on the approved process and procedures outlined in this resolution.
Yeah.
We haven't had any approved process and procedures outlined in this resolution.
Okay.
This sort of cart before the horse.
Well, if you look at.
We have a resolution.
We have a
Oh, you
resolution.
go back to 1113 on
Yes,
this?
that's-
Okay, then I can't support it because it's,
But you don't
Because I
support
can't
the original
Right,
resolution?
right, exactly.
Yeah.
He's not going
Okay.
to support it in any event, so.
So
I'm not
that's
gonna
okay.
support it as long as it's got, you know.
Well, we're gonna discuss the inspection one in a minute, so.
Okay, this would be impossible if anybody else at the table didn't want to support inspection.
Okay, all right.
How could you?
That's right, the whole thing would.
Correct,
Right,
I just
yeah.
want to make that clear.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have any more discussion on this policy paragraph?
I'm sorry, I missed your point, Marty.
How can you approve this
Right.
if you haven't approved this?
Well, we haven't, because we're gonna make a motion on that later on, so we haven't approved that.
Okay.
It's going to be a second reading and final reading.
We're
for
gonna have a
MO1
motion to approve the
with
whole
these
thing.
amendments.
Believe me, I understand that,
Okay,
but you can't.
He does understand.
yeah, I understand.
Okay, now, let me just point out a couple things in this policy thing, okay? You know, this thing, we can pass resolutions that we're blue in the face and put them in our resolution binder, okay, and move on. But we as a board are making a couple of things very clear to our general manager, are we not, Tom? Mm-hmm. We want your CPI department.
To follow the procedures and the policies that have been approved.
No, we want you to focus on the major issues that affect the membership of this association by the trashy and improperly maintained properties in this association. That's what we want to see them focus on. That's the board's will, I believe.
Correct.
No,
We're not worried about, it's not that we don't care about all violations.
Our priorities are in the trashy properties, and we're all on the same page with that.
Okay.
No question about it.
Okay, but it's, and again, it's sort of like speeding, and I might go 62 miles an hour going to Salisbury, but if I don't go 68, I'm gonna get a ticket. That doesn't mean we stop all the guys going 62. And if it's easy for inspectors to focus on things that are easy to focus on, but we want them to really worry about the big things.
I
Okay.
understand.
All right, I'm gonna call the question on this policy. Unless there's any more discussion. I'm on A2.
Now, wouldn't it be proper to follow what Marty said, to move to the next one, since it's,
Well, I'm just approving this paragraph as written,
Bill,
okay?
may I-
One amendment
may I-
at a time.
may I?
yeah.
Yeah, MO1, Bob, at the last meeting, we had first reading. So we have before us a proposed resolution. We are now undertaking a series of amendments to what we've already undertaken. This is the second of those changes. So we've already, just a few moments ago, approved amendment number 1 to MO1 as cited here. This is amendment number 2, which is a separate distinct decision. And then next we'll undertake motion number 3 to amend amendment number 3. So we are now saying, are we going to approve this amendment to what we already have in
All
front of
we're
us?
approving is this paragraph by itself. That's all
Correct.
we're approving.
And
We're
then
gonna come back
lastly,
and-
we'll wrap the whole thing together, incorporating all 3 amendments.
Yep. Okay? I'm gonna call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No.
Opposed?
One opposed. Okay. All right, the next one is the most controversial one. And I'm gonna go ahead and read this, and I'll discuss it. We'll discuss it in discussion. Okay, the motion. I move we replace the existing paragraph 6C to draft resolution M-01, the version 2009-11-13 with the paragraph below. 6, general procedures, subparagraph C, inspections. In the process of evaluating the existence and extent of a violation, CPI inspectors may have the need to enter onto a lot to determine whether there is, in fact, a violation of the DRs or the ARC guidelines. The general manager shall establish written procedures to be followed by inspectors. These procedures shall detail documented efforts to obtain permission for the inspections prior to entering onto a property. In the event that an inspector cannot obtain permission from the owner or an adjacent owner, adjoining owner to enter onto a property, the general manager may make the decision to authorize entering onto a property to conduct the inspection or to close the file. The decision to enter without the member's permission shall be exercised on rare and limited occasions. Should, however, entering onto a lot be deemed required for such an evaluation, the examination shall be limited to observation and/or documentation, period. Okay? Now, that's the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah, you say in here, no written policy currently exists delineating the authority of our inspectors to enter onto a member's property without permission. Well, it does, it's in writing, right here.
What's it
Number
say?
14,
What's it say?
association's right to perform in certain maintenance. This is the only place that it's mentioned in these documents.
Can I read that?
Sure.
All right.
And this is referring to
That
an
says,
inspector.
paragraph 14, association's
employee.
right to perform in certain maintenance. This is a paragraph that addresses maintenance, nothing about inspections, nothing
It's the
whatsoever.
only place where you have any authority to go into a person's lot.
No, this is this very clearly in English.
No written
gives us
policy exists.
This gives us authority to go in and conduct maintenance. There's not a word about inspections in that particular paragraph, but I understand your point.
That's Marty's point.
But may I make an observation?
Yes.
What Marty is referring to is the background information, not the amendment itself.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just the background information.
Right.
Having nothing to do with.
Yeah, I
what
haven't
we're-
commented on C inspections because everybody knows I'm against that.
But the point is, he's not addressing the actual motion that's in front of us, but rather the background describing that motion.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion on this?
Help me make sure I understand this, because I've read this several times, and concern is granting access, and what we've done here with this new paragraph is not only limited the access compared to what we have now, but we required access to be granted only with permission by the general manager.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's how I'm reading this, that's how I read it last night. I just want to make sure we're clear. It's not the department, CPI, ARC, ABC. It doesn't matter what anyone ever named. This says only by the authority of the general manager.
That's what it says.
Correct?
That's what it
Correct.
And that's the intent.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And the evolution of this, Bob, the original scenario here, his history of this MO1 and this particular paragraph, is each succeeding version has tightened up, and now here's a further restriction, and as a last resort, the general manager has to approve that inspector going onto that property. If you can't get the neighbors and so forth, can't see it from the street, only the general manager can authorize it. And that's feedback that we got, many of us, I think, from the public and members, in fact, even of the press. I hate to, but there are some members of the press that actually advocated that position, and we listened and responded, and this is what we got.
To give you some background on this, we heard a lot of input. You and I had talked about it.
Yes.
We talked about it. Okay. I personally believe that that's not necessary. Okay. I don't think. I think that if we say rare and limited, if we give the conditions, and we say the general manager has authority to make his written, instructions, in my personal belief, that's enough. Okay? However, I can see I can see all the concerns. So I met with the general manager. I said, Tom, you know what's going on here, and people are concerned. I said, why don't you write a paragraph for us that you can live with? And he said, okay. I said, because I want to hear what, you've been watching all this. What can you live with as a general manager and still have enough flexibility to, in the rare and limited cases, that people should do what they need to do, to document and to confirm, and this is what he came up with, okay? I would, all the things we've heard about in the past about officials from management walking around people's backyards, and I've seen somebody I said, who was that guy walking by? That's not only stopped by this resolution, it was stopped maybe 6 months ago. Okay? Yes, sir.
I think there's a lot of ways that this could be written, and we've already seen a lot of ways that it can be written. And but I really believe that the bottom line is that whether or not we have the authority, the inherent authority to authorize management to conduct inspections, and I believe we do. Marty believes we don't. Okay, and other people believe we don't. I believe we do. We have legal opinion for that we do, and that's enough for me. I also believe that this paragraph is an acceptable way, given that you have so I'm basically going to vote for
Just
it.
one final question.
Yes, sir.
Of Tom. Tom, today, does the ARC, CPI, ECC, whatever you want to call it, follow the current written and approved policy? No.
Which policy?
The policy that's in existence today. The one that requires getting the form.
From the police department.
Yeah. The policy that's ignored. They don't even have one. I
They
don't-
may do it, they don't have to. Well, that's the whole point, Marty, that's
That's
why
the
we're
whole
doing it
point.
new.
So we're going to have
So this is
another
an approved-
unfollowed policy?
No, we're gonna follow this policy.
Okay, let's follow the policy
Well,
that's in the
and with
DRs.
my understanding on this, Bill, just to clarify, I know you and I had a long discussion about this. Granting access, I wasn't in favor of. Okay, we talked about that. I don't believe granting open access I think it violates property rights, of each homeowner. However, with that being said, I think this is a reasonable compromise, giving our senior officer of our homeowner association, being, Mr. Olson, if we can't trust his judgment as our senior officer, we've got bigger issues than that. So for me, this was a legit, a fair compromise, and knowing we're elevating it to the very senior level, and it still if a property owner feels violated or hasn't, they still have a right to come to the board to complain or whatever. So this really gives a reasonable, I think, when you're living in a homeowner association and you need to protect our properties, and so this I thought was well written. I know it took months to do, but a lot of energy back
Many
and
months.
forth. Yeah, and I.
It's a dumpster load is what.
Is there any more discussion?
One last thing, and I think it's important. Dave Stevens, I think, mentioned the most critical fact here. We do indeed believe that we have an inherent right to do what this says we can do.
The majority does.
The majority. You're correct. Dave pointed out appropriately that one member of the board does not believe that. The rest of us do. It's supported by the legal opinion we've sought from our attorney, and that's the underpinning for what it is we're about to do here.
Okay, is there any more discussion? I'm gonna call the question. All in favor of the change to paragraph 6C?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, it's 4-1, right? 5-1.
5-1.
Okay, the next motion is also by me, and I move that we approve the draft resolution M-01, version 2009-11-13, as revised by the inclusion of any amendments reviewed and approved at this meeting. Such amendments attached here too. And those are the three. I left that sort of different because in case we did want to make any changes.
Bill, might I suggest, before that's put up for a second, that maybe we revise the wording here now in light of the fact that we have just recently, just a moment ago, approved 3 amendments.
Okay.
That we can change the word by inclusion of the amendments instead of any.
Of the, okay.
The amendments reviewed and approved at this meeting.
Thank you. I accept that change. And do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Do we have any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I'm just voting on it because I wasn't paying attention.
You're not going to vote?
No.
You abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, so it's 5-1. All right, so we're finished with that compliance resolution. It's approved. And by the way, I think almost everything in that resolution is in effect already, except for the approval by you to enter. Right. Okay. All right. Moving on, the PAL. Mr. Vice.
All right, I'll run through real quick here. Resolution reviews. Dave, any updates on that?
No.
I think we're following
I think
through
we
this,
just,
right?
Just got over the hump on that one.
Let's keep moving on the rest.
Okay, delinquent assessments. Any update on that from Pete?
Three quick comments. Number one, liens were recently filed, 226 in total, for a total amount of $340,000 in accordance with the previously approved process for the association to take with respect to delinquent accounts. So 226 recently filed liens, $340,000. The statistics on outstanding dues at the end of November, there's a total outstanding amount of $442,000, contrasted with $285,000 the prior year. And in terms of those amounts that are current, of the current year assessments that were due May 1, $251,000 is the amount outstanding versus $185 last year. So the pattern continues, the collections continue to come in, and that's all I have to report.
Okay.
Question?
Yes.
I'm sorry, one last thing. As we said at the last meeting, there is a process that will involve in February that group that I had outlined in that paper that I did for you all, and we're going to follow that. So it says right here, Resolution F04, we will follow that. In February, that group will convene and make decisions on individual properties as to which ones perhaps to foreclose on and so forth. Okay, so we're just following the board's resolution previously passed.
That answers my question. You haven't initiated foreclosure yet on any
Yeah,
property?
we have, haven't we? Didn't we do one?
Well, we're actually in the process of developing one right now.
Yeah. There's several, I think, that there's no debt ahead of us, Marty, where I think we are proceeding.
One was on the agenda last month that
Yeah,
had a
right.
$70,000 mortgage.
Right.
That's
Several,
not debt.
yeah.
I mean, that's a lot accurate.
Okay.
Amenity task force. Bill?
We're going to be discussing that when, in a, later on in this meeting, okay?
Compliance policies and
Done.
procedures. Election committee report. Chair, we actually, are we going to talk about that later?
That's
with
We are.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we'll just move that. Search committee. Each director is supposed to have one. I know that Marty had already put something together.
Marty's got one,
Set one.
Les has got one, I've got one, and we need to,
December 30th is the debt, right?
yes.
Okay, so some of us still owe one by December
You
30th.
got 14
I've
days.
got a couple of people.
I got time.
I've got two in my pocket. If any of you all don't want to nominate anybody, I can do it for you.
Okay. See Bill if you need help. Okay.
Sell one of mine to you.
No bartering, please. Quid pro quo.
If they have any value, I'll
Do we-
sell you the one I gave you.
Do we have any pending committee assignments? I didn't see that.
No, I don't think we do.
Okay. 10 years task force, I believe you said we're going to have a meeting in February, right? It's gonna
We're
be-
targeting.
8:30 at the Yacht Club on Friday.
Oh, for the
And
next
reporting to the,
task-
and reporting to the board.
The next task force
Reporting
meeting.
in February,
Yeah.
right?
Coincidentally, it's after the budget,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, items all on under 8, I mentioned in my manager's report. The precept I'll have for the next meeting for the contract review task force. And Bayside property encroachment we're working on.
Add to the list Pinehurst drainage issue.
Good.
It'll be on there forever. No.
Until it gets resolved.
Well, it'll be on there. It'll be visible. We're going to get an action plan on that thing.
Right.
Okay.
You need to add the ethanol thing too. at the same
Ethanol
I think so
thing.
too.
Add the
Good.
ethanol
Good.
thing.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's what this is for.
All right, we already talked about the deck. The bathhouse is on, project's delayed due to cost. Parking lot. Beach Club parking lot. We saw the bids on that, but we're not taking any action, or do
No,
we have
actually,
bids?
they've been tabled.
That's been deferred.
Okay. Because we have to do September 14th. We don't want to keep having that due.
Yeah, I just
Right,
marked
right.
that as tabled or deferred or deferred, I guess.
Keep it down for info only.
Yeah.
Okay. Bridges. Update on the bridges. Tom?
I circulated a memorandum for the record the other day, met with Director of Public Works, John Tustin. We're in the process of getting them re-inspected. The county's actually getting them re-inspected right now, and The details are in that memorandum that I sent.
And that was also covered in Linda Busick's commission report.
Yeah,
so.
the county was picking up 80% of the cost.
But yeah, for some reason, they got another public hearing in January, and then they'll finally approve it, so I'll be there for that.
Finally
public
approve it
hearing.
again, huh?
Okay. Yacht Club, I know there's been a lot.
We're going to address that on Friday.
Okay. Contract review, we already have that, right?
Well, I gotta have the precept for the next meeting. I'll tell you who's on it and what the process is. that
What they're
we're
supposed to
following.
do, what their, what their authority is, et cetera.
The encroachment we'll bring up at the next meeting.
Right.
IRS issue,
I reported on the next three on my GM's report.
yeah. Continuing improvement on the website, that's just something that's being addressed continually. I know it's come up at the Communication Advisory Committee several times. F&B business plan,
Only meet as needed.
it's needed, right?
It's ongoing, yeah.
Comprehensive plan, request input from the Executive Council, which, Dave, any input from that?
Well, we've had a report from the Comprehensive Planning Committee, and I think there's an issue relative to the next
we can get into that
comprehensive
thing
plan.
when we get to that report, okay?
Okay.
Let's
Commissioners meeting, send out invites, the letter has gone out to the county commissioners, and now to the new president, Mr. Church, inviting them to the meeting.
Okay.
Have not
What's
heard
the date
anything.
of that again?
What's February 17th?
February 17th?
Yes.
Yeah, oh, it's right there. Excuse me.
Yeah, so the letter, it went out, an invite went out to them.
I'm looking on the right-hand column, but it's in the left-hand column. Okay.
Yeah, Executive Council,
That's just a reminder.
just that's coming up and when they are. Volunteer Appreciation Night, February 18th.
Phyllis, I want you to make sure you remember for this volunteer appreciation night, the people that are no longer on committees that were on this year, we want to make sure they get invited to, like the tennis people, people that, you know what I mean? The list for the volunteer appreciation night.
All right, I'll have to get with some of you and see who was just recently
Okay,
let go. Because when they get off, I put on the new ones.
Well, I'm
and-
concerned about that because if they served this year.
Right. Just get out last year's
Grace
list.
Smearman for a tennis advisory committee, she dropped off in this month, so we got to make sure that she's.
You know, an email to each committee chair could probably,
Yes.
or just
Who
look
was
at
on the committee?
look at the committee roster for last year.
I didn't keep it.
Oh,
Okay.
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 All right.
And you don't know if you're
All right,
looking
we'll
at the
have
right
to
one.
make
Gone
sure we.
and forgotten.
All right.
Membership
I
response
looked at that list the other day,
program.
we're doing good on that, and, okay,
FB, FB working group, so.
okay.
All right.
Next, I want to go down now and review the annual reports from the Veterans Advisory Committee. And the reason this is something to say, gosh, this might take a lot of time, but these people spend, come to all these meetings and they make recommendations, and in the past, they've said we don't respond to them. We don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but those things to make sure that we don't, either we give them feedback or we accept it or whatever, is important. So we'll start off, John McLaughlin had to go to Florida, and his mother is taking a turn for the worse, and I told John I would cover his stuff. In aquatics, woo. I am not going to address this entire report, okay? But, Marty, yes?
Can we address a couple things?
We are, okay? But I'm gonna give an overview of what my concerns are and what I think John's are. First of all, there's a lot of routine repairs, emergency equipment needs to be checked into and done. And you saw that toner report, a lot of little things, okay?
Yeah, let me just, what we did is I distributed these each to the department head, so that's on a list of repairs to be done, and they're actually working on that.
Yeah, all these reports have been
Yeah.
staffed by, Tom has got them and staffed them. Okay, the next thing is training. There's some recommendations here on training. And I believe that, I know we're cutting back on training and those kind of things, but I believe that we need to consider, with training for these people in safety issues and all that kind of stuff is so important, we need to make sure we invest what we need to do, in my opinion.
All right. To clarify, we did cut out all training funds that weren't required this year in order to keep the budget tight. We are going to reemphasize the need to improve customer service, and I'm going to need training funds for that. I'm also going to need training for for some of the certifications for people like lifeguards and things like that.
And we're not going to cut out, where those are going to be in the budget, right?
I'll plan on those, yeah.
Okay. And then there's some comments here about hours. And along with those hours, I know I've had lots of comments about fees. And I say, we're looking into that. And maybe I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that the Recs and Parks, the Aquatics Director, and the Aquatics Advisory Committee are, in fact, reviewing all this stuff.
They're reviewing the fees right now as part of, Parks and Rec is reviewing the fees right now as part of the annual budget process.
Budget process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just if I may, and this is a good one to start with because it's really a comprehensive report. It's a great
It
report.
is.
They did a nice
It's
job
just-
on it.
Yeah. Maybe as a way forward, I might suggest that I found most of these items had to be taken care of by the general manager. I mean, had to be addressed by him. And some of them, which involve expenditures, which done in isolation, I think would be a mistake. In other words, the board could look at them, we could discuss them, but in fact, unless we know what the whole budget looks like, we really can't
We really
say.
can't.
But on the other hand, we have the problem of, these don't fall into the black hole, as they have in the past. What I would suggest is that during the budget process, that the general manager take an action to point out, to have a checklist in which he shows how every one of these things was either addressed or not addressed.
Let me tell you, let me remind you about last year because I'm doing the same thing. There are many capital requests made by the Aquatics Committee on this, sliding boards, this, that, and the water features and all those other things. Most of them are not qualified for reserves funding. They require new capital funding, which comes out of your general fund. Based on my 2% limit of what I'm going to be able to fund from general fund things for operating expenses and new capital, it's very likely that I will not be able to approve many of those. They will go on, and last year you had the same thing. There was a denied capital project list, okay, which lists everything that was submitted for request, how much it cost, and that it was denied. So it goes on this ongoing list that is the first thing revisited when we start the 2011-2012 budget.
Yeah, Tom, okay, that happened, and that denied capital project list could also be requests from Harlan or from...
everything.
From everything, it's all almost together. What I'm asking for is, can we have a piece of paper that specifically addresses or checks off the items on this list so that the committee recommendations don't get lost in the general mush of all of the recommendations that happen in the budget.
So you want a separate report?
No. I think you're asking for linkage between this and the budget, one way or the other, right?
Yeah, exactly. In other words, I would like to be able to if I were going back to the Aquatics Committee, I'd be able to say, okay, look, here's what you asked for, and here's what's happening.
Gene, I have a thought.
I think this is interesting, this conversation, because what I believe needs to be done is that the advisory committee, along with its board liaison,
precisely,
is the one who needs to be more proactive to make sure that the things these people are doing are being done. If they do that, then we don't have to, at the board level, don't have to get into what I consider a little bit of micromanagement.
So the liaison would report back what was happening with all the recommendations?
Well, I would hope. We all have
I think
different
Dave's got a
interests.
good point here, and I think there ought to be some linkage, but a way to accomplish is exactly what you're talking about. And that is have the board liaison be responsible for going through these recommendations, highlighting those that they believe have budgetary implications, either capital or operating, ask the general manager, highlight those for the general manager. If I'm finance and I have 3 that have budgetary implications, I can say, now, Tom, I want to make sure that these 3 are addressed one way or the other. And so when we go through that budget process that we're all involved in, we as committee liaisons can then look and have expectations, general manager, those are either in or out, and why. And
Right,
so we can
but-
facilitate that discussion.
If I may add one thing to that, we as board liaisons to these committees are not decision makers.
No.
Our obligation is to not to filter the things we don't like and only.
We're the messenger.
We're the messenger. I have found that in some of the budget things where you say capital items not included, do not include what the committees wanted. They included the department head, rightly so, had eliminated some of those and only recommended what he wanted. So you cut out what he wanted, not what the committees wanted. You know what I mean?
They should have all been included in the list.
Yeah, but they don't-
If they haven't,
yeah.
I'll double check that. They
Okay,
should have.
but anyway.
So we're putting it on the board liaison, and I don't
Yes, we
object
are.
to that. So the board liaison is gonna be the point person to make sure that Tom Olson has addressed each one of the committee recommendations.
Yeah.
And the address can be, no, we can't do it, or whatever it
Right.
turns
You
out.
you okay with
Paul,
that?
you okay with that?
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I don't think it's,
Okay.
as long as the board liaisons.
Well, that means we got our work to cut out for
Their
it. Yes, sir.
responsibility.
I think I asked these of you, and I have not heard it, it's not really your job, I guess, but Tom, can we or can we not have a diving board
At the indoor pool?
at any pool?
The pools aren't deep enough. You need, I think it.
Stop telling me how to build a watch.
No.
No, okay, that takes care of 3 items.
Whoa, are we short? What? We can't have a
All right,
diving
all right,
board?
wait a minute. We just got handed to us this morning another report from the Aquatics Committee, and
I haven't
they
seen
reckon, I know, I just got it. I haven't seen it either. They acknowledge the fact they can't have that.
Okay, that's
thank
great.
you.
Second question. We operate as public swimming pools. Is that correct? I mean, this is what I'm told. We're operating as public swimming pools. There is a huge cost difference between operating as a public swimming pool and a semi-private swimming pool. I'm told. This is not my bailiwick. I'm just
Which is
asking.
least costly? Semi-private?
Semi-private.
We're semi-private.
I actually think we are.
Yeah,
I'll have to
we're open to the
Well,
public. We are a private,
We
privately
are
owned.
operating as public. You can go over to the Key this afternoon and swim in their indoor pool for, $10 and a pat on the back and a towel. They operate as a totally private pool. They don't even have a lifeguard. They don't need to. Hell, we've got more lifeguards than sense.
Should we really be getting into the,
No.
right now?
We're talking about this
You're
report.
You're right.
I want to know if what we are, because this year we're looking at a
Why don't-
humongous
Let me ask you to get
runoff.
back to it.
Let me go back.
My view would be, we are a privately owned pool. It's not a public in the sense of you owned by a municipality.
I don't think we
We
are.
are clearly a privately owned
Okay,
pool.
well-
We're open to the public under,
Well, the reason I ask this is because there's a difference of number
There's
of
limited
lifeguards, the
public access.
certifications, the inspections, all
we
that.
are not a quote
But
public.
understand, we're operating under Red Cross standards. Say if you've got X number of bodies in the pool, you're going to have X number of lifeguards available. That is not about trying to follow some public pool standard.
Can Tom Olson confirm the fact that we're a private
Yes.
pool open to the
That's
public?
it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank
All
you.
right, once again, though,
See, this is part of the problem, from what I'm hearing. We got a liaison to each committee, fine. The liaison doesn't have any real authority, he just carries messages back and forth, basically.
Right. Or communicates.
I go to Tom theoretically for something that the BOG or that the environmental committee is interested in or recommends. He may or may not report back, and the board may never hear about it. Now, I could make a motion on every little thing in here to make sure the board hears about it. I don't think you want that. But I will if I have to. If I know I'm being
If you think it's
ignored.
important, if you think it's important enough,
Yeah.
you'll pursue it, right?
And I can understand, there's a lot of committees, there's a lot of people walking Tom's office, and he does fine with most of it. Something might fall through the cracks, and we'd never know about it. I might wonder about it, I might go back and forth, but still, is something missing there? There's no mechanism, really.
well, that's why we're having, that's why we're
I think we're
discussing this
creating
stuff.
that mechanism right
Yeah,
now, are we not?
But there's so much in this aquatics thing that
Oh, I know.
concerns me.
Well, I'd have to sit, if I were, I'm not, thank goodness, the liaison for this one.
Thank you, John.
But I'd have, yeah, thank you, John. But, I mean, I would have to, as I understand it right now, suppose I am, I'd have to sit down with Tom in his office, at least an hour, at least.
And go over every one of them.
And go over each one, schedule sports core repairs. What's the issue and what's the problem with that, Tom? Boom. Okay, there should be training classes. I'm going to put that in the,
Yeah.
but, you know.
I
How
don't
do you
think,
get
I don't
there?
think that's how I would do it. What I would do is I would attend the aquatics meeting where the aquatics director should be there, as should be the director of Recs and Parks, and that's
Those
where you
recommendations
go
are
over it
in.
in
Right,
detail.
right.
That's what I was
And
gonna
then,
say.
if you don't, if the committee and the management doesn't agree at that level, then you take it to Tom's level. I wouldn't start up and go down.
Now,
I'd
remember,
start down and go up.
just let me revisit that, because what I did was I took these reports, I've distributed them to staff for follow-up. That they need to, if there are repairs that need to be made, they have to put them on a list. If they're not gonna do them, they need to tell me why. If there are capital projects that need to be scheduled, do they recommend them or don't they? They gotta tell me why. All right, those things are actually in process right now. Now, Les, there's always something can fall through the cracks. Lots of stuff goes on along there.
Well-
And that's where I don't consider that as, well, I consider it helpful that a liaison is actually looking at it as a second set of eyes saying, I think that we missed this thing or that.
That's how we know it's fall through the cracks, and it's going to happen for sure again if something else isn't done. I mean, what I want is that the clubs not come back to the board and say, look, you guys didn't pay, we did all this and didn't do anything about
Exactly
it.
right, Dave. But again, I mean, do you handle it up here or do you handle it down here? Let me give you an example. On section 3, page 2, capital letters. Do not make the S&R pool shallow. Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. I have heard those who are working on the pool and the plans tell the guy designing it to make it shallow. Now, if we're going to make it shallow to save heating for the water and to make it easier to clean or whatever it's going to be, these people deserve an answer. Okay? And that's my point.
That's right.
Can we go one step further and say that this board needs to understand that that's a big decision and to have some input into that?
I would like to encourage the committees, the chair, to pick up the phone and call one of us and say, they're not listening to us, and this is a problem. But if we try to manage every problem here, we're not going to get anything done.
Sure. But the big problem,
This
yes.
has been addressed at Parks and Recreation, and it's not a problem. They were concerned about the depth being where they couldn't use starting blocks.
They're also concerned about the depth for scuba training.
And everything that's being considered.
There are a lot of valid
will work.
reasons.
All right, well, they need an answer. They deserve an answer. Okay, let's.
I think it's been done, but that's it.
It's the best place
This
to
is what we had. It was all.
I'm going to move on to the next committee, which is
Could I have one quickie?
bylaws.
One quickie on aquatics?
No,
You skipped one.
Okay.
go ahead, go ahead.
Now, who's the on page 3, section 5, paragraph 3, it refers to the contractor, I think. By the way, I love the word term whimsical, but
What is
the
that?
second sentence, should the contractor for swim lessons, that's the outside person engaged just to conduct lessons.
Yeah.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Okay.
Now,
All right.
my next one is not bylaws, it's. You skipped, budget and finance.
The next one is budget. Pete?
Yeah, on page, whatever, that report, there are 4 bullet items under the recommendations for board action items. Essentially, all of these pretty much relate to the budget process, which is about to be undertaken. Real quick, recommends reserve plans requested in 2011 also be followed for 2011. That's part of our board guidance, so that'll be part of the budget process. The second one is HR policies. This is an interesting one, and it goes back to the prior year's report by the Budget and Finance Committee, at which time I served on it, and actually drafted the report that went to the board as a result of that budget review process. And we focused on some of the HR issues, some of the fringe benefit items, and here it is again. So this will be something that will be reviewed during the budget process. But again, it was a recommendation last year as well, 10 months ago, that something be looked at in terms of the fringe benefits and the large costs and what can be done. In the meantime, Tom, I understand you've made some changes to the program here that reduced the cost. You reported it in your report to the board here at the last meeting, the semi-annual report. Some changes made to the fringe benefits that reduced the cost, I think by $50,000 is what you said in the medical arena. So it'll be part of the budget process this year, but all my point is that's not a new thought. We do not have an HR function at Ocean Pines. We do not have a committee that deals with HR issues. And that's something maybe we ought to think about going forward. I'm not teeing that up right now. I'm just saying that that's something that perhaps we as a board ought to consider out of this recommendation. Thirdly, the fringe benefit plan, again, ties directly into what I just said. And I do understand better now the last item about the $500 for 401k plan, and I believe the committee does not yet have that answer. There's a reason for it. It had to do with the negotiations with the police department some years ago and so forth. So, and then the last one, again, is budget related about the fire department. And what I'll simply say on that is that, again, that's part of our board guidance. We debated it at our last meeting, the board guidance, and this was a sensitive part of that. But in the meantime, there has been a meeting with the fire leadership. Bill Rako received a call from the leadership, Jamie English, and effected a meeting involving Bob Thompson as liaison to that fire department. Bill is president of the board and myself as treasurer. We met with 3 of the representatives to open up lines of communication. We did not have an agenda for that meeting. We did not have particular issues, but it was a very, very productive, I thought, meeting for the 3 of us at Ocean Pines and the 3 members of the fire department to get together to establish that line of communication. Out of that, as it relates to the budget and this particular recommendation, came 2 thoughts. Not 2 thoughts, 2 points of agreement. Number 1, that we would receive more information. Number 2, that they would be part of the budget process this year. And just like other department chairs within Ocean Pines, they would like, and we would like them to have the opportunity to be part of that process, and Tom is agreeable to that. Sure. And so that will happen this year. So just as we'll meet with Harlan, we'll meet with the fire department as well to discuss their budget requests. So that's a positive thing that came out of, I think, this. So I think the committee recognizes here in this recommendation that $660,000 is a very large dollar amount for Ocean Pines. And particularly in light of some of the events that we can debate all we want about how much they're going to get from insurance. Marty doesn't believe they'll get anything from insurance, and I believe they'll get a substantial amount. We've talked about it. We won't have to debate it much longer. The facts will be in. So they'll be part of the budget process, and I think that's a good thing. Communication lines have been established. That's a good thing.
Thank you. Marty?
Yeah. You had sent this out and asked us to report on it, which I did to you. And I don't know if you want us to bring that up
If you'd
now.
like.
I would.
If you think anything's appropriate, bring it up.
And it's because I don't like rumor sent down the street as fact. In the fiscal year 2010 budget, the board approved approximately $666,000 for Ocean Pines Fire Department. Here's where I have a problem. Based on prior board's procedures to not question a request by the Ocean Pines Fire Department. That's nonsense. You weren't there. Did we question it? Did we demand all the numbers?
I sat in the
Did we
room
have
while we
meetings
did.
with the
All right,
fire
wait a
department?
minute. This is a committee report. It's not a board report.
This is, this was written.
He just wants to correct the fact.
He wants to correct the committee
Hey,
report.
listen, I'm not
It's a
saying
missing-
that John,
This is how the
I'm not
committee
saying
thinks.
John said anything about the swimming
All right,
pool.
okay.
I'm
speak to-
saying it's not true.
Okay.
So let's not look at it as
What was the
fact.
date of that meeting?
I would have to pull my file, I don't know.
I don't know.
It was during the budget.
It was
Do you
during the
remember?
budget
It was
process.
probably in February or March, something like that. I don't remember.
Precisely.
I don't remember.
Here's the point. I am no longer on the committee. I am the liaison. I was on the committee last year. Let me report. I did not participate in the crafting of this report. All right?
I'm not saying you
But
did.
let me speak to it.
Okay, fine.
All right. A year ago, as part of the budget process, the committee, I drafted it and the committee reviewed and approved it and so forth, made a very specific recommendation on fire department. Okay. They did not get any feedback as a committee to that report. Never got any feedback from the board on that report. We're unaware of the meeting that you gentlemen are talking about.
You mean the meeting that was not announced, not put on the website, and we don't know anything about it?
It was a
Who attended
private
it?
meeting.
A private
Marty
meeting?
Clark
Did you attend that
attended
meeting,
it,
Marty?
I
Dave
didn't need.
Stevens.
Well,
I have minutes.
Other
of them.
board members are, Bill Zawacki, I believe. I
Bill
don't know.
Zawacki,
That's
Dave
the-
Stevens, and
Bill Zawacki was
I think the
It
two
was
of
you
you.
and I, it was Tom, it was Jamie Englishman, it was the chief, and it was Glenn Duffy.
And it was after the budget
Oh,
process.
Glenn Duffy was
Yeah.
there because of his fire
Right,
department
exactly.
connection. So it was much,
And it was nothing more than a presentation.
it was a
of their-
presentation by the fire department and of their requests.
I have a memo that I've recently obtained documenting that meeting. And it said that you all were very satisfied with the answers that you were given. My point is only that this committee, the Budget and Finance Committee, was
Yes.
excluded totally from that meeting, number one. And number two, did not know about it. and number 3, got no feedback following it.
Yeah, I don't remember
That's why it's
I don't
here, Marty.
remember the
It was
circumstances.
a
I
board,
do.
it was a board
of how
level
the meeting-
decision to get that meeting going. I think we did it, we talked about it at a board meeting.
No feedback ever
realize that.
to the
No.
Budget
Okay.
and Finance
Okay.
Committee.
Well,
Period.
we'd have to go back
That's why-
into
Okay,
history.
that-
The meeting didn't.
Good,
quote
I'm
for
glad
how-
that
okay.
I'm now correct.
Marty's point is well taken. Is there anything else to
Yeah.
talk about this, from the budget and finance?
That's why it's here.
report? Okay, let's move on to the bylaws. Dave?
Okay, I don't really have any comments on I read the recommendations. They obviously have staffing problems.
Was the meeting you had with the fire department the other day at lunch posted on the website?
They don't, well,
Thank you. Don't talk
there is
about
no real
safety.
issue on the legal issues or anything like that,
All right.
and they're proceeding.
Okay. Thank you. The clubs
There's
committee, I'll handle the clubs committee for John McLaughlin again. The only recommendation is that before we continue with the design build and whatever we're going to do for this club over there, that we decide on a concept for the facility that is going to be renovated. And that's a good recommendation, we know that, and we don't want to get into that again here, but that's a valid recommendation. Communications Advisory Committee, Bob?
The committee, as you all saw, there's no formal recommendation here. The committee was basically, I hate to say reformed, but there have been a lot of moving part, now new players in place to include Ron Fisher at the chair of that. So they didn't have any recommendations. We are going to talk a little bit about their MediaCom report.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about that, Bob?
Sure.
Because I know we're going to talk about the MediaCom report. I mean, this was a paper, it was unsigned, not by Ron Fisher or anything. And I guess here it says they don't have any recommendations for board action, yet the paper clearly recommended a bunch of things. And I'm wanting to know whether or not it actually came, out of the committee, or it was just one individual on the committee who sent it out.
Who sent the recommendation?
Yeah, the recommendations, the ones that you forwarded to the board.
Yeah, what I forwarded to the board were Bill Stratko took the lead with that particular report. Don LaFamme was the chair at that time. Given the fact that we've had Dick Beatty, Ron Fisher, and some others added, it was hard for Ron to say, we recommend this be forwarded to the board, given the change of leadership at the time. So that's why it didn't come as a formal recommendation on their report, because Ron really wasn't part of it.
It is on the agenda, and we will get to it.
Correct.
Yeah, but I just want to note that now, that I don't think it's a formal recommendation of the committee. It's a separate.
All right.
Correct.
Well,
Okay.
right, it's brought to attention by a board member. Okay, the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee.
Yeah, I think there's one issue in here, and there's no question, the Comprehensive Planning Committee went back and looked at the last comprehensive plan, and actually, they spent a lot of time doing that, trying to determine exactly how much of the last comprehensive plan was actually accomplished. And it turned out, I don't remember the number, but at the 80 or 90% level, the things that were in the plan actually were realized. It's also true that, given that's the case, it's time for another comprehensive plan. The committee recommends that the board approve a certain amount of money for professional help to develop that plan. I guess I've heard different comments from board members, no formal discussions on this yet. That is that really necessary, or do we really need it, or it could be this kind of a plan, or it could be a loose leaf notebook, or it could be a, whatever. It's my opinion that the committee, as it's currently constituted, can try and pull together materials and do a lot of things for it, but that they're not going to produce a plan. I think one of the things that this board has to decide is, A, do we need a plan? Do we need a comprehensive plan? B, what form should the comprehensive plan take? And C, is it one of these things we're going to cobble together in-house as best as we can? Or in fact, should it be professionally supported? I think those are the questions to be answered. You know, I believe with respect to first case that if you look at the state of Maryland, they have a requirement that municipalities, even as small as Berlin or some of the surrounding municipalities, have a comprehensive plan. In terms of what it should look like, they specify a recommended format and guidelines for producing these comprehensive plans. And again, as just a matter of opinion, I don't believe we really, at least as far as it's presently constituted, we have the capability to produce it ourselves. So, you know, I just leave this. I mean, at some point in time, I don't feel that the committee ought to be encouraged to proceed with this too much further, unless the board really is serious about having one. And I think that should be a subject of a not too far in the future discussion, perhaps with a presentation of the pros and cons and so forth.
I agree with you.
I agree.
Okay, but in the meantime, they're asking for $25,000 to be put in the budget to have a drafting, writing.
A writing company.
Committee. And I believe in today's austere economic environment, we should just tell them no. We owe them an answer. And last year they asked for the same. I think they asked for 30 last year. They reduced their needs by 5,000. But I mean, until such time, and you're the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee liaison, if you would like to recommend to us a quick separate board meeting for those board members who want to attend, we can go over this thing, and I'll be more than happy to do that.
Well, I think that's part of it, because I think the answer no is fundamentally say, stop wasting your time on this.
I agree.
I mean, because it's silly to have people with writing assignments and so forth if we're not going to back it up.
I agree.
Agree.
Well, we got to tell them the answer is no. We're not going to be putting this budget.
Well, no, we don't have to tell them the answer is no. What we have to do is discuss it, get all the facts on the table as to and consider what is important to us may not be right now, but in the future, and then come up with a joint decision as to what they should do. That's what we have to do.
They're really two separate
questions. The budget's being drafted today.
Well, then we have to do it sooner.
Well, recommended me when
we should have a comprehensive plan.
We do have one.
And they've done a good job over the years on it.
We do not have a comprehensive plan. It cannot be updated. It is, in fact, it's done. It's done.
So that's my point. I hear Dave saying we don't have a current comprehensive plan.
And I believe we need one.
We need to decide.
Well, okay. Well, Dave, if you'd like to talk to me about that, and we'll schedule when we can do it.
I'll talk to the committee and to Art and to the members of it, and let's see how they feel.
Okay.
I have one quick question here. In this report, it says, "The problems encountered and assistance required," and I read that with interest. And I didn't understand about the YMCA issue. It says Ocean Pod should take this to litigation ASAP.
Well, but that, and the recommendations on Section 5 are that we actually pursue, which we are, okay?
This has been in litigation for a long time.
I know, but...
You're not aware of it?
Well, and the second item...
Not as long as the Comprehensive Planning Committee has been around.
Well,
I thought this is the annual report.
It isn't.
This is dated October.
All right, well, and under the second item on Section 5, the board stay engaged with State Highway Administration. I'm actively working. I mean, I went over to the meeting. We're involved in that very heavily.
Yeah. And by the way, Tom, on all our website things about this committee, the proper name of the committee is a Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee, not planning. So, you know, we don't even know what our own name is. And I told Teresa a couple of times to correct it.
Bill, this report is dated October 30th. And the recommendations for something that's already going on, and there's a recommendation that we take this to litigation, has been in litigation for over 6 months.
Okay. Well, don't forget that it's written by committee members who aren't always informed of what's going on.
Oh, I think they're very well aware that the litigation is ongoing. I think the intent of this is to, it's an area of interest for comprehensive planning. It has been before we went to litigation, and I think they're only
The
saying
YMCA.
That this is something they think is important and we should continue to press.
Yeah,
Nothing more than that.
All right, moving on to golf.
Yeah, golf. We have another decision to make on golf.
Yeah, we do.
Because the BOG, as we all know, the Board of Golf Governors, is not really an advisory committee. It works for the golf course, really.
Golf program.
The golf program. They do a lot of things. They plan golf operations. They plan tournaments. They had a great junior program. All those things are good things. They revise their own bylaws and that sort of thing. But back a year or so ago, when the advisory committee for golf was combined with the Board of Golf Governors, it seemed like a good idea at the time, but it is an abject failure. It just worked out that way. It was a good idea. But the members who were absorbed into the BOG as advisors just drifted away. It never amounted to anything. So I can continue to be the liaison, and I enjoy it, and they have a meeting this afternoon if anybody wants to come over there. And there's a report here, but are they a committee that you want to keep on as an advisory committee or not? And if you wanted a golf advisory committee, you got to get one together, because this isn't it. They do have requests for budget items that I think impact on the 10-year planning effort, things like leaks, mildew, and new lockers and things. I don't know how they're going to be addressed. Maybe entirely up to town, that's fine. But there's a lot of decisions that need to be made.
Dave had a comment.
Yeah, some background, since I was intimately involved with all of what happened. First of all, Les, you may not remember, but the initial resolution establishing the Golf Advisory Committee made the BOG and the BOG officers an integral part of that committee. As a matter of fact, it made them the majority of that committee. What we attempted to do was to separate out the two committees. In other words, have the BOG do the BOG functions. BOG, by the way, I noticed in one of that amenity reports, somebody says, the BOG doesn't represent all the people in Ocean Pines. Very true. They're elected by the members only. I mean, period.
It's the Board of Golf Governors is what it is.
Only golf members elect them, and I mean, it's just that. And they don't have any real responsibility except to make suggestions and set up the programs, or recommend the programs for members, and external stuff too. So the Golf Advisory Committee, okay, on the other hand, the idea of that was specifically to bring in people who are non-members of the Ocean Pines, but are golfers, and who are resident golfers who don't belong to the club, to get their ideas about the direction the golf course should be going. The problem is, now you still have the Golfing Board of Governors and the Golf Advisory Committee. Do you have two separate meetings? And if so, what do you talk about in the second meeting, the Golf Advisory Committee meeting? Probably we should have taken a step further than that. What we did do was write a resolution which divided the Board of Governors' responsibilities from the Golf Advisory Committee. The problem is we don't really have a Golf Advisory Committee. The better thing to do, or a thing that might be done now, is to really separate them. Get a Golf Advisory Committee, don't mandate necessarily certainly a member of the governor's can participate, but don't mandate how much, and see whether that works. But I'll tell you, part of the reason for the failure is people say, yeah, I'll be on it, and they never showed up.
Didn't do anything.
They never showed up.
Well, they showed up a couple of times.
Yeah.
The problem, as I see it, as I saw it, you got two separate agendas at the same meeting. You've got the advisory committee people, when they were coming, who had management responsibility. They were there to recommend management things like membership and prices and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you have the BOG, who's not the slightest bit interested in that, because we, as the board, said, you're not going to do that anymore.
Right. That's why they weren't interested. They were told to stay out of that.
That's right. They were told to stay out. So now you have one meeting with two agendas, and that's not going to work.
And that wasn't even this board, by the way. It was a board that goes back before us.
Not a single member of this board was part of that board that said,
I know.
butt out.
I know.
Okay.
So
But they
it
did,
needs to be
right?
fixed.
They did.
Yeah, it does.
We've identified a problem, we're not going to solve it here.
Yeah.
That's correct.
No.
But the purpose of this, as I understand it, is to talk about these things
Right.
as a board, right? And we
Right.
clearly have a problem here that Les is highlighting, right?
All right.
And Dave is reaffirming, and my own observation is that as well. It's interesting because I think as I listened to the amenities report and that group, I think there's a clear misperception that they think the BOG is setting the rates and making all these decisions, and in fact, they're not even touching it. Am I right?
They're not. No.
Not entirely. They've made recommendations.
Well, they do. They
But
made recommendations under
last
the
year
old
was the
setup.
first time in a number of years that they made a recommendation for another class of membership.
And Dave, that came
But
out
it's
of...
all about membership.
And that came even out of a public presentation that they made, to which the entire public was invited, and to give input into that recommendation as to different categories of membership.
But some of the public who came had a different impression and thought that it was covering the entire thing, and they were upset because they said,
All right,
hey,
well,
we didn't, you know.
I've got a note here under board actions. Resolve Golf Advisory Committee BOG situation, okay?
It's on the PAL list now?
I'll have to, maybe you and I have
Let's
to
put
meet
it on the
again
PAL
that.
list.
Maybe it is. Maybe you and I have to meet on that again.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
Elections.
well, let me just say, how hard is this? Golf is one of our biggest amenities.
real hard.
It's the big, well, it doesn't have to be. The board needs an advisory committee, as we do for everything else, to advise us and make recommendations. We have an aquatic, everything else we have.
have
Why
tennis,
would we not
aquatics,
have a golf advisory
food and
committee?
beverage.
Why are we even
But not-
pushing this out for a future? We need to get a golf advisory committee to advise the board and make recommendations. Very simple. Why is this hard?
Amen.
Amen.
I mean, I don't mean to state the obvious here. so-
Because there's a lot of politics involved.
But we should remove that. Maybe that's part of what the problem and why we have all the negativity
Well, I didn't want to
around
get,
golf.
Dave said, assigning all those people in the BOG as automatic members, or 4 of them, I believe it was, automatic members. I think we can look back now and say that was probably a mistake.
No, understood.
Well, it was a continuation of something that happened. It existed. I mean, you can go back to that old resolution, it's right in there. What we did is expanded it so we got more outside members on the advisory committee to get it balanced.
We have.
Didn't we even try to get a non-golfer on the advisory committee?
We got 3 of them on there.
Non-golf.
Oh, non-golfer.
No, that probably was.
Someone who's not a member of the golf.
No, and I'll say mea culpa to that. I said, I don't want a non-golfer.
I got it down here. We need to have this on the off.
Bob,
okay.
It has to go off.
Bob, I agree with you. And I think we have aquatics. We need a golf
Let's just
advisory
keep
committee.
moving.
And by the way, I don't object to having some members on the BOG also be part of that. I mean, so.
Until it becomes a majority.
Well,
It becomes a
fine.
majority.
But
Then you
I
have
think,
4
I
wolves
think
and
the
a sheep
politics you're
talking
referring
about
to,
what
Bill, are
they have to
mostly myths.
Okay, elections.
Can you skip that one? Keep jumping all over.
No, not,
They're not quite in order.
not in order.
No, sir, they're not.
Elections is
You
EL.
must have dropped yours on the floor.
No, they came stapled, so.
Elections is next.
It comes right to
Yeah, it's after
CPD.
Oh,
comprehensive.
excuse me, golf is what wasn't next. Okay.
Golf wasn't
We got that out of the way, though.
Okay,
Elections.
I'm sure I'm right here.
All right.
Golf
Sorry.
got out of place.
Golf
There were-
got out of place.
The recommendations.
And it is.
For the recommendations for improvement here, I think it's on EL2. Everyone, I'm sure, has had time. Resolution regarding elections, voter eligibility list. Now, this isn't something where we've had I've sat down with the committee per se because we're re-engineering it, but these are things we just need to be aware of. Eligibility list. Some folks got 2 ballots. Well, we need one list. I mean, I think some of these are pretty simple if you read through them. There's nothing.
Nothing earth-shattering about this.
Yeah, I mean, this was basic. Okay, we just need to clean it up a little. Overall, I think they do a very good job. I mean, in the past they have. So it's just a matter of, at the end of the month, we're going to have our...
Right. Well, what I think we have to do on this is we need to read this, we need to read the existing admin resolution. This and the admin resolution need to be combined into one document that sets out all the detailed procedures of what we do, okay? And most importantly, we've got to confirm the committee chairperson for the next year. It's not too late to do that now. So you need to call her and ask her. She indicated to me if she could, she'd serve again. So we need to call her and ask her if she'd serve.
Yeah, that's kind of what I heard, Jeff.
Okay, but again,
She did a great job, so.
I think that's been delegated to the vice president. He's not running this year, so I think it's best that he...
Yeah.
I'll give Diane a call.
Okay.
There is one item in here I would recommend the general manager focus on. It has nothing to do with elections, but it has to do, on page 2 of the report, under paragraph C, simple little thing, room setup. They highlight a person who was pulled out of the yacht club to help them set up rooms and so forth instead of Parks and Recs. And apparent lack of support from OP Parks and Recs Department. I personally have, and apparently they have also experienced the failure to do that, so they reached out to somebody else. It's number 7. Has nothing to do with the election commission, except it does have to do with, I think, customer service that we talk about.
Understood.
And this is, okay, it's reinforcement of what I've experienced, what he's experienced, what we've all experienced. Thank you.
Environmental?
Okay, Environmental Committee did a lot of good things this year. I don't know how many of them people are aware of, but they did a lot of things from the Rain Barrel grant that they got from Coastal Bays, which was educational. They participated in a lot of things. They created a Green Street column in the quarterly report. They had an Earth Day cleanup at the South Pond, that sort of thing. All kind of different stuff. They had a forest committee, created a buffer over there at the South Pond. Did a lot of environmental things. The thing about the environmental committee is that they, how should I say it? A lot of people just sort of let that go by. Some people aren't even in favor of environmental concerns at all. But so they have a lot to fight. But they do make an effort. Some of the problems are when the community hall was being built, they were never asked. They had some environmental things that they wanted to put forward with the planning process, just to put them out there. They weren't asking that they absolutely had to be included, but they pretty much ignored on that. And now they have some questions about other projects that are in the 10-year plan. They don't feel like they're getting making much headway with that either. Things with future projects. I think that they have something to say. They ought to be allowed to say it. And if there's a good reason not to listen to them or not to do what they want to do, then they should be communicated to. That's all. But they finish up their report, by the way, by recognizing Carrie Nelson, Public Works, and Teresa Travatello for an awful lot of good support that they have gotten from them during this past year. Some people in the administration are working with them. Their recommendations basically is establish some kind of mechanism to ensure timely responses to their committee communications. Once again, I've put a few things out there that have pretty much been ignored. I could come in here and make a recommendation or even make a motion on some of these things, but they seem, I don't want to use the word trivial, but I hate to make motions on every little thing that comes up. There ought to be some way really for this committee and others to be heard, to be at least listened to. That's basically it.
Les, can I ask what, because not just picking on this one, but on a couple of the others, the listen to part, comes in. And then I read it and I say, I wish I could remember one. Can you give us an example of that then? Any example?
It came forward from the committee.
Yeah, I mean, and then I go, oh, heck, yeah, that's right.
Well, some of these things that actually went forward, when they had a photo contest, I remember talking about that at a meeting. Nobody here, it was actually pretty well done. Nobody from here that I can recognize showed up for it. But there was a lot of people that did come that were interested in it.
Let me help you.
Barbara, you have anything you want to say about
One of the
that?
things was they recommended an alternative heating system over in the community center. It was the geothermal, and we did look at it.
Should have done it.
Yeah. We did look at it.
Yeah, let me,
Well, wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Does the board want to depart from the rules and allow one of the members to speak on this?
Allow Barbara as a member.
You do?
Yeah.
All right, I can make a motion. And if it's unanimous, then I will allow her if it's unanimous. Okay, Barbara.
well, you asked Les for some examples, and what our biggest beef is that we have sent, I don't know how many letters, probably 6 letters to the board and/or Tom, but typically they've been directed to the board of directors. The first 2 or 3 of those letters had to do with the community center, and it's true that we made recommendations, but the biggest issue was we offered our assistance to help anyone who was involved in these issues to find resources, to educate them on where they might be able to go to get the kinds of things that we were talking about. And we didn't hear anything. The same is true of the beach club. We have some real issues with what's going on at the beach club, and we've written letters to the directors about those, particularly the paving of the parking lot. And we've heard nothing in return. Nothing. So it's more a matter of we're here to provide input. We're here to provide assistance. We don't get asked, and we offer. And so it's not, if you want to turn it down, that's okay. Just let us know.
I agree with that.
When was the last correspondence letter? I don't recall seeing anything.
I don't either. I don't recall seeing anything about.
I don't remember anything. I remember the one about the community hall, but that was ages ago.
Well, there were 3 separate letters with regards to things that are going on at the beach club. I don't have
never
the dates
seen
in front
one.
of me.
I'm sure of it.
Yes.
It was about the time.
I have seen an email about the beach club, but the beach club hasn't even come before this board yet.
Yes, but I just heard someone ask a question about the parking lot contract.
I understand.
So the point is, it should come to, we should be involved before
No, but you're
that.
addressing these things to the board. No, here's all I want to say. We have a 10-year plan task force that's out there trying to develop recommendations. It's going to make a presentation shortly to this board. It's given update briefings to this board from time to time. And it's in the process of, and we've deferred basically action on that beach club, okay, including the parking lot. It's down the road, like a couple of years maybe, all right? So the rest of, the full board is getting emails about something that's not even on our radar screen right now. Okay, we can talk privately, but that's what, I just sense of that.
My only question was, have you seen, because I know Bill's doing an extremely proactive job at responding, and I just didn't know if anything, as of recent, you had not gotten a response or heard something.
That's the key to me, is the no answer. I don't care if the answer is.
I'll find out.
Yeah, just because one of the things
I'll find
that's
out when they
important,
were sent.
it's important to us to respond, and I
Right.
think that's happening, and I don't recall seeing any of the issues, at least with this board.
And I think we would agree. Bill deserves an A+ for that.
Well, I don't want an A+, but
Well,
anyway, I think, are you through with the environmental?
I have one question for Les.
We're going to
I have
return
one
to the
question for
rules.
Les. Okay, return to the rules. I don't, see- other than a reference to an article about recycling and I don't see any recommendations about recycling. And yet, interestingly enough, coming out of the Budget and Finance Committee, one person at that level wants to engage the Budget and Finance Committee in moving ahead with recommendations regarding recycling. And other committee members are saying, whoa, that's not the committee's responsibility. We're Budget and Finance, not environmental. I don't see anything in here about recommending a plan of
Not
action.
anything in there, but there was an awful lot of talk about recycling. There's an awful
Previously?
lot of things that went forward. There was some talks, I know the committee members had talked to various people in the county that had something to do with recycling. I know the committee members talked to the various trash pickup people that
Right.
see what kind of projects they have.
Okay, so it has been something they've,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, they haven't been able to get anything done with it yet.
Okay, okay.
Well, just to be sure, we do have a recycling program, and it's pretty active. But it's not a door-to-door.
I'm sorry, I beg your pardon.
It's not a door-to-door.
Pickup, door-to-door, yeah, door-to-door.
All right, we're gonna move on here.
Okay.
The next one is Marine Activities Advisory Committee, okay? And I'll fill in for John on that. And they really have no recommendations. They've done a lot of things. They did have in there buried somewhere that they're gonna look into the non-ethanol in the spring. We're not gonna do that. I read that very carefully. I said, we're not gonna wait till then because it's too late, okay? I also see comments in here. This is what I think is important for us to understand. It says here, on subparagraph Roman numeral 2B, speed limits. There's some speed limits were discussed at some channel, and then it said, but the board did not see it as an OP problem and did not respond. Okay, there are a lot of things that are referred to the board that really the board may never even hear, okay? And so my comment to you all is that, and this is, I've told the presidents this, they should feel free to bring things up. I don't mean to chair people of the committees, but at the same time, if the board liaison doesn't want to carry that forward, at least in a comment, then, you know, the board liaison is in fact dismissing it himself, and they're blaming the board for it. Okay?
Who's the board liaison for this?
John. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one. Let's see about, okay, the next one is Recs and Parks. Marty?
They've put in some things for the budget, additional lighting in the pavilion on the pathways in Whitewood Park. They've asked for some Y entertainment systems for senior activities in the new building. And other than that, they've been checking the parks out regular every meeting. Everybody's
Okay,
walking the
so
parks and
no-
doing their assignments.
All right.
And the skateboard park, of course, is, I don't know, working out really well.
Okay, I think the last one's tennis. And there's really, maintaining and increasing the membership is important as far as and we're working on that. And I think it's going to continue to get better, and we're going to continue to push and recommend tweaks to any kind of membership program. This is what I think the role, this and the budget items and things are the role of the Tennis Advisory Committee. The Ocean Pines Tennis Club, which is parallel to the BOG, handles social events, tournaments, and those kind of things. And they know, those two committees know exactly what their roles are, and there's no stepping on anybody's toes. And the head of the OPTC is a member, one person is a member of the Tennis Advisory Committee. They do want the missing strip of lights that was authorized last year in the lighting of those two courts to be completed.
It's in the capital list for this year.
Okay.
Might add that tennis is, I believe,
Okay, we're done with it.
the only membership that's increased.
Yeah. Well, not by much. Not as much we hope, but we're moving forward.
15, that's a lot. More than 15.
Okay.
25, it's a huge percentage.
It's a little improvement. Okay, we're moving on to new business now, and we're going to go to the item E on that vehicle policy motion. Pete?
Okay, before I get to that, just one quickie. On your list of other committees, architectural review, they are not required to submit a report. So while you have it in your package as on the index as the first item and GOMSAC as a liaison, they're not required to and did not complete a report. So it's not missing, okay? Okay, on vehicle storage, I withdrew this last last board meeting from consideration because I had some additional conversations even the night before our board meeting with Bernie McGovern, chair of the committee, chair of the ARC, and I just felt that we ought to have another look at it before we actually brought this forward. So I'm bringing it forward again as a motion on vehicle storage. The backdrop of it is...
Would you read your motion and then we'll...
Okay, let me read the motion. Okay. I move that the board approve the following revision to the ARC guidelines of August 2006, revised 8/1/2006, section 1100.1, vehicle storage. Delete existing C.2, which reads as follows. All vehicles parked or stored on a property must have a current state registration and license. Add new C2, the language of which is, in the process of evaluating whether a motor vehicle is to be included in the, quote, junk, end quote, category, conditions such as, but not limited to, flat tires, missing headlights, broken windows, the absence of current state registration, and other on-site conditions are to be considered. That is the motion.
Second.
Okay.
Discussion.
Okay. Just give me a little background here. And I think all of us, except with the exception perhaps of Dave Stevens, participated in that special board meeting held over here in the community hall on the subject of MO1. And at that time, we did talk about vehicles and the ARC guidelines. And you recall some photographs were held up. One was of the infamous Volkswagen bus that had the headlights missing, the flat tires, and just a junk vehicle to beat the band. And another one we had was of a Sebring convertible, a car very similar to ones that Marty, Clark, and I drive, that was being cited for a violation because it had no tags. Nice looking car, didn't you think, Marty? But in any event, the Volkswagen bus had historically in this community not been cited for a violation because the owner would periodically produce a registration. And so the position being taken was, oh, we can't do anything about that one because it has a current registration. And then we have this red Sebring convertible that we were going to cite for a violation because, although it was a nice looking car, didn't have a current state vehicle registration. That's what prompted this whole thing. Brought it forward, Bill, go ahead.
Could I interrupt for a minute?
Please.
This in no way, if this in no way limits them, they can go over there, and if there's no license, they can cite it, right? Mm-hmm. It's their judgment call. Okay, I think we've talked about this a lot. I'm going to call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Sorry, Pete.
Shouldn't be that easy.
It was easy.
ARC supports it 100%.
We weren't going to let you talk yourself
Sorry.
out of it.
Who seconded that? Marty. Okay, the next subject is a motion on customer service, okay? And this is a motion by John McLaughlin. And he says, I move that the general manager be tasked to develop a comprehensive customer service plan for the Ocean Pines Association staff and present the plan at the February board meeting. That's the motion. I'm making it for John. I'm making it for me because he's not here. I have to make it for, I'll make it for
John moved through Bill.
John McLaughlin and
Seconded by
Okay,
me.
discussion. What I think he's afraid of here, Tom, is that if we don't put this in writing and say, here's we want a plan presented to us, it's going to go on too long. I know you're working on a plan, okay? How do you feel about this?
I'm more than happy to update you in February as to where I'm at.
So
with
you have no objection to this motion?
We can
All right, do
call
I have
it a
any other
question.
discussion from any other?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
I think I'm in support of it. Okay, I had some hesitation about it. I talked to John about it. What I just want to point out to the board, then we'll move on. We, as a board, embraced back in August this very important matter having to do with customer service, all right? It's up on our goal number 5, major needs. Develop among the employee group a zeal for providing outstanding service to the membership. I proposed that change. We adopted that change. It's up on our website. So customer service is not a new thing. We as a board have already embraced this concept. Now we're asking for some accountability. I'm done.
Okay, and it'll be on the, yes, excuse me, Dave, go ahead.
Need to call the question.
No. Come on, Marty. Not that easy.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you
He didn't
wanted
see
to.
your hand up.
Yeah, I guess you know, who can argue against customer service? I mean, customer service.
You could.
No, I won't. I mean, I'm all for good customer service. I was bothered by the amenity report, and a little less so by this, not the motion itself, but by the fact that I think it's true we don't have consistently good customer service, and I think it's true that it's very true that it can be improved, and I think it's very true that it should be a focus for the management of the Pines. And I don't know what a plan would be to do that, but I can imagine several things, and I've talked to Tom in the past about, you know, running campaigns and things like that. You know. So I'm just, you know, I believe this is a case where I don't think we should paint everybody in the Pines. I think we do have some very good customer service.
Of course.
And that should be acknowledged too. Okay. So at any rate, that's my comments.
I'm going to talk to John about what his expectations are of this plan. If it's a one-page sheet, try harder, work better, smile more. I don't think that's what he expects, Tom. Okay,
well, and that's part of the point.
You'll have to give
what I expect, Tom. I mean, my own personal interpretation of this is that it's going to be visible to the public.
Okay.
I mean, the public's going to know that there's a customer. I mean, there's a campaign.
I have just comment on that too. Inherent in this motion, and a lot of people don't realize it or see it, there's lots of different kind of customers. The general public is what most people are thinking about when this is being read.
Members.
The members. But everybody's got customers. Parks and Recs, their customers are other administrative outfits. Public Works, their customers are what? The Yacht Club, other things. They need to show some good customer relations to each other. Interdepartmental customer relations. It's absolutely a fact.
Well, like I say, Tom, I don't know what you're going to come up with, but if you need more guidance, I think we're more than happy to give you some more opinions.
No, I'd just like to say that, you know, it's not something that, oh geez, well, let's get started on this today. It was at the very time that the board was establishing those goals and objectives, I was meeting with my individual department heads and their staff to talk about what they need to do. Next step is to create those documents and say, here's what I'm expecting at a minimum. The third is to say, I need to get some formalized training for these folks, and I'm planning for that as well.
Let me give you an example. I just have known a lot to Johns Hopkins lately. You walk in that place, anywhere you walk, they are indoctrinated. When they say hello to you, they just say, hi, follow me. Hello, my name is Amy. How can I'm here to help you, and all that. I mean, it's just it takes a lot of leadership to get that kind of stuff done. Okay, I'm going to call the question.
Membership. By the way, just call the question, 15 seconds. We establish this as a major need, not because it's motherhood and apple pie, but because we felt, and I felt, and others felt, that it was a lacking need in Ocean Pines. It's not about motherhood and apple pie, it's about that we have perceived, have experienced a failure, and we wanted to address it as a, quote, major need. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving right along. Just because we're going fast, I mean it's not important. Mr. Thompson.
Being efficient for a change.
Thank you.
I sent, this isn't a motion, this was a discussion
topic.
Okay, just so we're clear on that. The Communication Advisory Committee, at the time, Dave was the liaison, so he can please chime in with anything that you'd like to add here. Took on an activity of reviewing the MediaCom service. You know, how it was, you know, provided to us, if it was effective, and other alternatives. The paper's been circulated. I sent the email of the information that I received. The only thing that I think in the last email correspondence I sent to everybody did not include Dave's white paper directly, but there was a subsequent link to it in one of the emails I attached. Just expressing their concern at the level of which MediaCom serves our community. And they offered some alternatives. They looked into digital. Bill Stratka is very knowledgeable in this particular area. He had also brought up concerns about the contract with MediaCom and the validity of it. Hence, there's no motion. This was just something that they had put a lot of energy into, and they wanted it elevated to the board for further discussion amongst us to figure out if we'd like to pursue, if there's a direction we'd like to head, based on that, what they found and based on the information I've circulated. Dave, you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, just a little bit of history. Okay, what they did produce, and is on our webpage right now, is just a straight fact sheet on the options, the kind of television. Actually, I think it extended to internet and phone options, since bundles you factor into it. And that was, and it's a straightforward. It doesn't recommend anything. It doesn't get into prices. It just says, here's what you can do.
Doesn't get into prices.
Doesn't get into no, because prices change all the time.
And if I may, it's because dealing with a salesperson over the telephone at MediaCom is much the same as buying snake oil off the back of the wagon in Dodge City.
Yes, maybe. However, a second thing, which was sort of the companion piece, which is something I wrote, and went out before and was available at the MediaCom meeting, was a MediaCom fact sheet. I went through the contracts as best as I could and tried to simply state what the history of the contracts were and what they say. Okay. Now, okay, those two things are out, and they're, can be revised, I suppose, or whatever, but I haven't heard any complaints or anything about them. This third thing, though, is basically gets into an FCC ruling that an exclusive contract with the cable company is illegal, and they quote it in here. And, what it goes on to suggest is that we do something about it. Neither the suggestion of what to do about it or some of the remedies, the legality of some of the remedies in here, I believe are not correct. Even if the word exclusive, which as far as I can tell only appears once in the contract, but it appears, and I reported that in the fact sheet, even if that were eliminated, I mean, the word itself is almost superfluous in the contract because MediaCom owns the cable and it owns the infrastructure. There are remedies provided in the contract should we have a substantial, if we should find they are in substantial default of what they have to do in the contract. We can refuse to extend the contract. That would undoubtedly be a legal case, but once we did that, we would have the option of coming in with another provider to whom they would have to sell their infrastructure. In other words,
fair market value.
They would for fair market value, precisely. So when that data arrives, I see no reason to believe we could do it earlier. When that data arrives, they have to sell it. That's the bottom line. Or, I mean, as some of the things in here suggest, well, we could simply get Comcast to come in and let them do it too. Rebuild over the existing lines and to get a split, to get a split of the customers at best. And we have never had Comcast come in here. Phyllis, Tom, going back, nobody's knocked at our door and said. And everybody, by the way, is aware of, I mean, if you're Comcast, I think you probably know about that FCC thing. Nobody's coming in here to do this. Some of the other suggestions, take action to fine the cable operator for lack of responsiveness to customer complaints. I'd just like to say, we have no documented, history of lack of responsiveness. We have anecdotes. Some people have had no problems, some people have had problems. I don't know that we're they're in anywhere near something you could call substantial support. But even if they were, there is no provision in the contract for us to find a private company at all. There's no way legally to remedy the franchise contract now. And again, inviting Comcast to competitively enter the OP cable market? No. I mean, I just think this particular paper is off base. And go ahead, Bill, I'm sorry.
I think that what we need to do is perhaps go back and sit down with these people who are so concerned and talk about some of the history and some of the real rules and some of the, it's easy to say, bring somebody else in, there's no compete clause, but like Dave said, so what? No one's going to come in and they got to either buy what they got or they got to put in new stuff, and they're not going to do that. It's cost prohibitive. So there are a lot of things that I know what I would do is I would lobby them to be more customer service oriented. For example, when MediaCom, when MCHSI was down for how many days? 4, 5,
Mine's
whatever?
still down.
Have they ever come back and said, here's what we're doing, here's why we did it? No, they aren't even communicating, apparently.
No, but if you called them up, they did leave a message on the phone.
Well,
I got an email back
but
from
regardless, but I'm going to terminate this discussion.
You got an email back?
We brought it
From
to the
them.
board's attention. Is there anything
Get
we need to
email from them?
discuss?
I believe we need not the liaison should
no.
report back to the committee that the board has decided,
I've got 20
has considered this, and is not going to take any action on this at this time.
MCHSI
For,
customers.
Whatever reasons you want to say. but-
That's the sense of the board, and I'd be more than happy to appear at a meeting and discuss it with them.
Yeah.
But I think to go back to what we were trying to do earlier is communicating back to the committees when they've spent a lot of time and energy creating this.
Yeah.
If we're going to take action or not take action, I think they deserve a response and an appropriate response.
What I think is interesting is nobody on that committee's ever had Comcast.
Just as bad almost.
Oh, it's worse.
All right, I'm going to move on to the next discussion topic, which is development of a strategic amenity policy submitted by John McLaughlin. And he thinks we need a broad strategic policy for our amenities. And, and you've got the 5 points he's got there. And I agree with him. And I was hoping John would be here to express to us how he thought we could do this. Now, I'll just go on. My intention is to, while I'm spending some time in Florida, sit down and write a broad, general amenity policy to incorporate all these ideas and submit it to all you all and have a meeting on it and start with that straw man. To incorporate these kind of things, what our policies are. And I also felt that we need to identify those things which are amenities, boom, 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 and then where a broad policy differs from what the specific one is. For example, marina slips, we need to put on there what our feeling is on how we're going to cost out marina slips, And we'd have to eventually address all those things and approve them. So anyway, that was my idea. Pete?
I'm kind of happy to put this off because I think we absolutely need it. Number one, a broad policy. We've had a lengthy agenda. I think it probably deserves more time than we might be able to give it here today. And so I hearken back to, again, August 2009, when we as a board first gathered, and I was new to it, and I put forward some thoughts and writings about objectives, and it said, amenity issue, establish overall board policy as to expected and acceptable community versus user financial responsibility. So this need for broad-based and specifically dealing with losses from a particular amenity and how they should be borne by the entire community was something that goes back to August. So I think we need that broad discussion. I applaud you and your desire to sit down and spend some time with it. And then we can, as a board, I think, discuss it in a...
Well, we keep playing with this forever.
I know. I had greater expectations.
I'm saying, if I sit down and work with a couple of you guys and come up with this straw man policy, we can address it issue by issue by issue. We could fight over it, we could change the words, we could all that kind of stuff.
I had hoped that, and I did not know what was coming out of the amenity committee's or amenity task force report, and I was hopeful that it would be broader than it was, and so,
I was hoping more specific than it was.
well, okay. Well,
It was too broad in my opinion.
well,
I wanted to
anyway.
do my work for me.
We need it to be done, and let's do it the right way.
Okay.
And I would agree with just one item here, and it keeps popping up. That this starts off number one, tying our hands behind our back.
Well, I don't agree with that.
That we can't contract out our amenities.
No.
Oh, thank
We
you.
can't.
Thank you. We can and we have.
Well, they're recommending that we don't.
Oh, I know,
That's
I know.
okay.
That's
just one person's opinion, but if we put it
No.
in, do it or don't, and we discuss it, we'll come up with
I
some
mean, if
decision.
somebody wanted to lease a golf course for $1, we're already
That's another story.
Okay.
Thank you,
All right,
Marty.
okay.
There's
The
no
next-
reason why we ought not to be able to do that.
The next subject should be fun. Motion on community center costs. Pete?
That would be me?
That'd be you.
You.
Well, let's have some fun, but not too much, because it's, a short
Wait.
day and.
Make your motion, and then we'll
All
discuss
right,
it.
I'll make the motion. Motion. I move that the board rescind a motion passed by the Board of Directors at its January 24, 2009 board meeting. This motion stated the Board of Directors, quote, "The Board of Directors requests that our general manager create a separate accounting center for the new community center," end quote.
There's a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion. Pete?
Okay, please. I'm passing out here that which is the reason for this being a motion. You all are probably saying, what's going on here? Why is this even on our agenda? Why are we talking about this? And that's because at the last board meeting, and I don't often do this, but I went back and looked at the video of the last board meeting to refresh my memory as to exactly what was said and how this transpired and why Pete Gomsack chose to bring this forward.
What
And-
last board meeting was that? The last board meeting in November?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, November 14th, I think it was. I'm sorry, November 18th, Dave, November 18th.
Okay, just wanted clarification.
Yeah.
that's what-
And at that board meeting, Tom Olson was giving his semi-annual financial report to the board, and he put this, what you see in front of you, up on the screen. And that provoked the legitimate discussion Marty Clark raised at that time, at the 1 minute and 14-second mark of that video.
Where, I'm sorry, where?
1 minute and 14 seconds, Bob. And he said basically that, hey, Tom, I don't see up there the community center as part of this. And at which point, a little discussion. Bob, you participated in that discussion. You were sharing the meeting in Bill's absence. And so it was pointed out by Marty that Tom did not have up on here as a separate item, as he was expecting it to be, the community center. And he pointed out that the board had previously passed a motion and actually kind of challenged, where is it? Basically, And Art Carmine and Tom tried to answer it and explain why it was not there, but departmental financial statement and so forth. And Marty basically said, look, the board passed a motion and you got to do it. And I then chimed in with, well, maybe not, and I said, yes, and I believe we need a new board motion, is what Pete Gomsack said. And so that's what we do. Now, and Marty said to me, it's your call. It's your call. Here's why we're doing this. Art Carmine has been working on the budget. And he basically said, do I need to create a separate profit center for the community hall? And the motion would say, yes, you do. And I would say, yes, that's what the motion says, but it doesn't make sense to me to do that. And that's what Tom Olson and Art Carmine tried to convey at the last board meeting, that Parks and Recs is the appropriate department. The building falls under their department. We have as a basis for our financial reporting here in Ocean Pines, departmental financial statements. Here it is, departmental financial statements. We don't have facility financial statements, we don't have building financial statements, we have departmental. And so it made little sense to me that to break this out and show it as a separate line item going forward in either our audited financial statements, that's what the second page is too, by the way, or the two stapled pages, that's right out of our audited financial statements. And it sets forth once again the various departments that we historically in Ocean Pines have chosen to evaluate from a financial standpoint. The directors can do anything they want. you can decide to have it as a separate department, that's fine. I think that's not a good idea. Number one, I don't see the relevance of it, number one. And number two, I think it diminishes from the overall financial performance of the Parks and Recs, which occupies that building. Background is very simply that the previous community hall was also part of their budget. The heat, light, electricity, maintenance was all part of their Parks and Recs. So everything that you gentlemen who were on the board before Bob and I have been looking at the last couple of years has involved the old building being part of their budget, right? And their financial performance. So now that we have a new building, I personally, and as treasurer, don't see the need to set that out separately as a separate profit center. Anyway, it's your call.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to
Are we
say.
still in discussion?
Yes, we're still in discussion.
That's all I'm going to
Well,
say.
then I'd like to have.
Now, let me do it this way. Does anybody else want to speak in favor of this motion?
I have questions. I don't know if it's in favor or not.
Okay,
in
nobody's
favor.
going to speak
Well,
specifically?
I was speaking in favor.
Okay.
Just when I look through this Parks and Rec budget, it just makes no sense to me to pull out one facility that they have and separate it from the rest of that department. I'm not the least bit interested in how many Hershey bars they sell at the community center, or how many stamps they buy over there. It just makes no sense to me. It's all part of Parks and Recs.
Okay, now those who just have a general question, they haven't decided yet?
This one right here, right?
Bob?
Yeah,
Where is that?
my general questions are, Park and Recs were in this building, correct?
Just temporarily. Just while that building's being built.
Right, did we do cost allocation? Did we separate cost when they were
No.
here for that
No, I
time?
didn't do that.
Okay, just wondering.
I'm sorry, did you hear he said that it was a temporary arrangement while they used to be over there?
In the old community.
Well, thank you for clarification.
I didn't know whether you heard it. Okay,
I
okay,
heard it,
fine.
I've been here, I know it's there.
Fine,
Thank you
fine,
for that.
fine, fine. Sorry, I apologize.
No, that's fine. I just want clarification. The other point of reference, because I obviously we got our packets a little bit early, I was able to read this. We're going to make a motion and vote one way or the other. I'm good with that. My bigger concern is if the board had made a decision to have this back in January, and whatever reason was chosen not to be followed, and here we are in December discussing whether we want to pass the motion to rescind it or not, I think the bigger issue is why it wasn't created. If the board makes a decision through I'm not saying whether it was good or bad to do at the time, but the fact of the matter, it should have been carried out. And then later, if it's decided it's not a good action, it comes back up and we make it.
Let me
Am I
respond
off
to that.
base
No,
on
you're not
that?
off base, you're on base. What I've done is I've created in this book here is a section, which they used to call it motions in space around here.
What?
The board would pass a motion and no one really know what it'd mean. Sometimes it'd be 2 or 3 years old, right, Phyllis? No, it'd be out there.
Yep.
So I created this thing, all pending motions, not completed, okay? This is one of them. I haven't forgotten this. So your question really is to Tom.
It's a good answer.
I'd like, Tom, before you get yourself in trouble here, let me tell you what I think you should have done.
Oh, yes,
What you
you
should have
will.
done, in my opinion, Tom, is you should have brought to our attention, say, gentlemen, would you reconsider this? Because I'm supposed to do this and they didn't do it, but I don't want to do it. That's what you should have done.
And I don't want to do it because.
Because, of course.
First of
The
all,
more basic answer. Go ahead.
the building was under construction right up and through September. The earliest this would have made any sense at all was at the conclusion of the month of September for the October statements. That's the earliest it could possibly be done. At that point, it really doesn't make a lot of sense because our budgets were established based on a different system of cost centers. I could have done it in September. I didn't do it for September, October, November.
All right, let me hear from those. No, you already had your chance. Let me hear from
Can
those.
I just
who are-
supplement what he said? There's been a direct question asked by
All
Bob
right, go ahead.
Thompson. Bob, we were 5 months into the next fiscal year, for which the budget had already been approved. So management made the decision that it made no sense to do it 5 months into a year with a new building.
Okay. Now, those people who are considering to vote against the amendment, David, do you want to say anything now? or-
Sure.
Okay.
There's an undefined term in the original motion, accounting center, okay? let me say, back in January, there were 4 of us at the meeting.
Only for, yeah.
And myself, Les Purcell, Ray Unger, and Marty.
Right.
We discussed it at length, and the general manager participated in the discussion. Now, what I had recalled, and then confirmed when I went back last night to look at the video all over again, is confirmed what I remembered. I actually did. I made it very clear at that meeting that we were not talking about, and Marty did not object, that we were not talking about creating another department. We were not talking about creating a profit and loss center. We were not talking about creating any of the things that are on that piece of paper.
Right.
What we wanted was an accounting, a separate accounting of the costs that were associated with that building. Well, how often? Every month? Marty said, nah, not every month, maybe a quarter, maybe one. He just wants to know what those costs are. Okay. Tom says, well, let me make this clear. And you look across the table at me and say, I want to understand what you really want. And what we want to know is what the costs are associated with that building. And we would also like to know, although that would be the first thing, is how those costs are currently being accrued. Those are 2 pieces of information that we have in hand. If I look back at the last sentence on your page, furthermore, if operating cost information for the community hall is needed, either now or in the future, it can be provided.
Absolutely.
Well, that motion asked that it be provided, and if you look at the video, there is no question that that was the context, and that's what we all voted for. No question at all.
Question at the last meeting was, Tom, why isn't it on this list? Why isn't it up there on the...
Well,
this was the challenge.
Perhaps it was, but in fact, there is a reasonable question. Not that it be on necessarily that list, but that it be on any list, a piece of paper that shows what the costs are. We would like to know electricity. We would like to know what the electric bill is for that. You have the electric bill for that building. You can tell us what that cost is. We would like to know, where do you put that charge right now? Goes under Parks and Recs. Whatever. What are the costs? How are they accrued? It basically allows you to look and track where costs are being allocated to where they're being accrued. Now, you might say, well, what do you want that for? I don't care. It's information, and if it's there and we want it, we should be able to get it. And it's a simple, no, it may not be so simple. I don't want to oversimplify anything. But it is information we have. It's information that Art can provide. He's already said he can provide it. We can do it on a quarterly basis. It doesn't have to be integrated into the budget. You don't have to change the current budget. You don't have to do anything except provide that information.
Thank you. Marty?
I have 2 comments on the motion and 1 comment on something Les said. Let me get the Les thing out of it. I know what Les was, I think you were saying that you didn't mind it being in the Parks and Rec. It's 25, if the projections and past performance, it's 25% of the parks budget. Parks and Rec, that's huge. I mean, it doesn't belong there. And if you want to put it there, fine, but we ought to have a sub that we know that 25% of Park and Rec is that building. The motion, in the background part, not very accurate. Pete says at the time of the approval of the motion, the board was considering the adoption of a policy to charge user fees to community groups, which would use the new community center.
That subject never came up
No,
during
it's
the
horse
discussion.
hockey. It's not accurate
Never
information.
came up during the discussion.
And it's put in there to be a little inflammatory, I'm sure. But the subject to user fees for the community hall was not a consideration in the motion. It was never mentioned in any of the discussions. Now, the second thing is, he says that this would result in that my motion results in less meaningful information for the operations of the Recreation and Parks Department. Whew, you may have just discovered the answer to all our problems. If we stop reporting the costs for golf and the yacht club, holy mackerel, they're all making money.
That's a good idea.
And if anybody doesn't think we haven't tried it, all they gotta do is go back to when we separated maintenance out of golf. hey, golf made 100 grand last year. Of course, they moved the 500 grand out of, or 200 grand out of maintenance over to another category. That is an example of going in the other direction of where I'm going. What I want to know is what it costs. You can't fix something that's broken or may be broken without knowing what's happening. This is what it costs. You can't fix something that's broken or may be broken without knowing what's happening. This is a simple request. And I don't understand your motivation behind taking it out. That's all I got.
Okay. Pete?
Yeah, I think what my motivation is to make the financial statements of the association, both the audited as well as the budget, inclusive, maintain the departmental reporting that we have historically followed. It is to not pull apart and create a separate department, which I can tell you, Dave, the language doesn't say department, but clearly the interpretation of both the general manager and the controller was they had to do that. And it was fueled by, and this is why I passed this out, if they viewed that as a directive to create now a new profit center to be reported on separately, I have no objection to altering the motion to encompass what Dave wants to what you have suggested, and that is the cost be reported separately, so forth. I have no objection to that whatsoever. What I objected to was creating a separate department when it is no such department. It is a building.
Well, I'll tell you, I invite you too, Pete, to go back and look at the video, and I'll invite Tom to go back and look at it again. I mean, I don't see how it could have been any clearer. We are not talking about a profit and loss center. That's what I said to you.
Marty Clark was. And is.
Wait.
If you look at
No.
the
Do you want a separate line item for?
I think it'd be nice to have it in there. After all, we have a beach club, a country club, and a yacht club.
Precisely.
You also do have those things in
We got
there.
a beach
And
club,
one of the
country
things
club,
that was
yacht club.
brought,
We do what
one
you
of
wanna do.
the
Hold on,
things
come on
that
here.
was
Hey,
brought
hey, come on, one at a time.
One of the things that was brought up at that meeting, too, by myself, is that there are problems with the way we account those other things.
And you don't want to change it.
It wasn't what we were.
Stay the way we've always been.
We weren't addressing it at that point in time. What we were asking for was a cost accounting of the community hall. That's all.
One last comment. You
All
know
right,
what the
well-
difference between this and this is? The income. What was the income on the community hall last year? It was up less than $2,000? It didn't go skew it much.
No, it's costs. It's
All right,
all
well,
about costs
You
and
know,
how they're allocated.
Okay, I believe in collecting information that we can look at and evaluate in order to see if we got a problem. If we're going to collect the information and say, oh, electricity costs this much, and heating costs that much, you know, when I drive by at 10 o'clock at night, the indoor pool, and see all the lights on in there, I say, well, are we keeping track of that? Why are all these lights on? You know what I mean? And
actually, we do keep track of that.
Well, it's under aquatics. We don't break it out by the building. We lump it in aquatics. We pull aquatics out of recs and parks, right? Right, Todd?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Now, this building here, for example, we pay, what, 1.39 million for the police department, but do we
No.
carve out a piece of this to show that much of this building is we should give them more, because they can give us back more for, you know what I mean? Because they're occupying a large part of this building. But what, if we did, what would it mean to us? You
We
know what I
used to.
mean?
We used to
allocate a
allocate all that.
percentage of the
What would it mean to
things
us?
like that.
Do we still do that?
We do. We allocate percentage,
allocate.
part of the country club to golf operations,
Well,
to
anyway.
food and beverage.
Anyway,
Where should the cost of that building be, if not under Parks and Recs? And the answer is in a separate department, right?
No, I'm not recommending that. What I
Well, that's
am
what Marty wants to do.
What I am recommending is that those costs be simply tallied, added up, and given to us, reported to us on a
How often?
quarterly basis.
I'm
Quarterly
fine with
basis?
that. I am fine with that. Absolutely fine with that.
That's almost what-
and that's how I interpreted this motion. And if you look at the video, you'll see I think it was pretty clear. Only other person there was. No, I'm not even going to bring that up.
I think one of the reasons why this came up is because the general management thought that doing this was a burden, an administrative burden, or a requirement that would detract from.
It was a mid-season adjustment to the way we were doing reporting. Let's a little bit of background here. Here's what happens.
Change it.
When bills come into the when bills come into the association, okay, they go through a payment process and they're coded, okay? They're coded and they're entered into the general ledger and they're in the payable system into the general ledger. And at the end of every month, based on those codings, we spit out a set of financial statements, okay? We carefully review them, make sure that all the codings are correct and make sure that everything ties. And we print out financial statements, okay? Midway through the year, I can create a brand new cost center. I'm gonna mess up tracking and things, but I can do that, okay? But I'm not sure why I did it, okay? Secondly, I was preparing the budget for this year, and it was, we got to do this. We've got to create another cost center, break all those things out. Our history is going to get skewed because, for the last 20 years, the history says, here's how much we spent in this cost center. Now they're suddenly going to go down in one area, and they're going to be new for another area, so your history gets messed up. But I was prepared to do that.
And how often has that been done in the past? A great deal.
Not in the time that I've been here, we haven't.
I don't think we've torn down a building before and replaced it with a new building.
See, to me, if we rescind this motion and say we want a quarterly report, we haven't really changed a damn thing.
Well, to finish this up, if what you want is that, I'm going to prepare a set of financial statements that have all my traditional cost centers in them. I'm going to have Art create a separate piece of paper that looks much like the one that's under Marty's hand there, that says, I've isolated these expenses because you asked me to, and here's that report.
But you can't do it quarterly unless you do it by month, all your bills have to be done that way.
Got to break it out from the general.
And the audited report, Tom, would
What
be
it
the same?
requires is a separate code be put in. It's not a big deal.
It's not a big
You have to go back and capture
this would look
all
the
the
same.
codes he did before.
Well, the building's only been up 2 months. I think it's
Do
more
we need
easy.
it? It's the question.
Let's make sure we know
It's a
what
good question. It'd
let's
be
make
much
sure we
easier
know
if
what
he
we're
did it
asking
when he was
for,
directed to.
and let's make the decision what you guys want.
Did
In
you
my
hear what
opinion, I don't think it's worth the effort of doing it. I don't think we're going to gain anything from it, and I think that if we want to do it, we got to start at the beginning of the next fiscal year.
Well, should I make the
Bob had a
motion
question.
Next month?
No.
Bill, Bob had a question you
Bob?
probably didn't hear.
Well, my question was, do we need it? I mean, what's the purpose for it?
To
Marty,
know
I
what
think
the
you-
costs are.
The cost of that building?
Yeah, the operational cost, it's $130,000. It's 25% of Parks and Rec.
You need to know what the operational costs of that building are. That's number A.
And then
The second thing,
All right, then when you know that, what are you going to do?
Well, hopefully, if you see it going askew,
When you know that, what are you
you're
gonna
gonna
do?
control it.
All right,
How is it
I'm-
useful? How is it useful?
I'm going to call the question.
You gotta put it someplace.
I'm going to call the
It's in
question.
Parks and
All in
Recs.
favor of Pete's motion, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, then the motion does not carry. Tom,
And you did not vote.
Wait a minute.
Bill voted.
Yeah, I did, didn't I? Yeah, 3-3.
It was 3-3.
The motion did not carry, so
Okay. I didn't see
now
your
we've
hand.
got a motion here which said that the board of directors request our general manager to create a separate, we did request it by motion, he didn't do it. So in fact,
I think maybe
and-
Dave might want to introduce a different motion that provides.
well,
for-
no, he doesn't have to do anything, we're done.
I think what the general
The
manager...
general manager's in a
What the
quandary.
general manager should
He's in a
do,
quandary.
Marty, I'm not saying you and I were exactly on the same page on this, I know that. But I think we're pretty darn close. We went through a lot of discussion in that movie, or that meeting. Marty did not object to what I was saying to Tom. It specifically said, no profit and loss. Tell us the costs, okay? Go back, review the video, see what it said, and it is no different than we said the other day when I asked Art how hard this is going to be. It's not hard.
I'll have Art break it out and send you one today.
And do
Today?
it, what do you think, quarterly?
Well, we don't,
Quarterly?
But I think, and for now, let's just see what it looks like, and then
All right.
quarterly from now on.
The motion
it's good.
remains in effect, okay. So
Motion's
Tom, you
okay.
got to do it. All right.
But the "it" is the important thing.
Well,
Well, we'll
if
see.
you do it
know
by
what?
quarter, you can do it by month. and then you
It'll
can-
be a
yeah.
lot easier when we see the it, first it.
All right, I want to move
to
on here
talk
to
Your
CPI
interpretation is very
violations.
different than his. Fine.
All right,
Much to do about nothing.
J is the first one. No, I think J is all of them. 50 Abbyshire Road. Box trailer and rear yard, non-compliance. Tom?
Okay, you see a photograph of the box trailer there. You'll see the timeline and the process that the CPI folks went through. They inspected on September 9th, sent the first letter. On the 24th, the follow-up inspection was done. On September 24th, the second letter was sent certified mail. It was received on September 25th. On October 7th, the violation was forwarded to ARC. On October 27th, it was apparent that the box trailer was moved. And then on the 1st of October, they contacted the owner and spoke with the owner, and said she was going to be attending the ARC meeting, but did not show up.
She was invited to this one too. Okay, we can sail that. There's nothing. We just have to hide the special things on this.
Yeah.
She has been given her due process. She has been notified. The thing's still there. So you're recommending that we have to go to court. It's personal property. You're recommending that, okay?
Yes.
Any discussion on this, folks?
She's made no special request?
I'm gonna, I don't know how to say this.
Well, you go ahead and say it.
But I can go and check the rules and see that it's probably there. I'm going to at least not vote on it at all or vote against it because I have a real problem with a working person with a box trailer, one just like the one I had in my driveway in Ocean Pines for about 12 years, getting a ACC or ECC violation when probably within walking distance of his house is a 25-foot pontoon boat with a ripped blue tarp on it.
And I understand how you feel on that.
Until we enforce trailers, I can't enforce trailers.
Okay.
I
Tom,
don't see a thing wrong with this thing.
I don't either.
I don't think it's wrong with either, except it's against the rules.
And I was just looking that up.
It's against the rules. Tom, when this goes to court, one of the problems is they move it and stuff. We have to make sure we communicate well with our attorney.
If it goes to court, we haven't had a vote yet.
To make sure, if we go to court, to make sure that whatever the judge says, he needs to include in that the provision if it comes back, we don't have to go to court again. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. Yeah,
Okay.
that's I don't control the judge's decision.
No, but the attorney, our attorney has to
we make the
express that
request.
this guy's a chronic
We
thing.
absolutely-
Okay,
we
I'm going
absolutely
to call
make
the
that
question.
This, Bill, this is a violation of our current DRs.
Yes.
Clearly.
Clearly.
I mean, there's no question about it.
Our DRs?
Or our...
No. Of our guidelines.
Okay, of our guidelines.
It is not of our
No
guidelines.
trailers are allowed to be parked on the property. It's in the DR.
You better read that closely.
Okay,
That's not what it
it's a
says.
violation. Okay,
Yes.
so my only question is, I've had to hear two other board members saying they have an issue with this for work. Now, just want to make sure I understand before you ask me to vote on something. We're about to vote to say proceed to go to court or to our attorney, yet we're concerned that we're impacting a working person's livelihood. So really, the next issue, we should be moving, not today, but if that's a real issue, we need to have someone present a change if all of us feel this isn't a good thing. Correct?
Correct.
If not, we need to continue to enforce what our rules are.
Correct.
May I read the general prohibitions, requirements that you're quoting? Here's what it says. No temporary house, trailer, tent, garage, or other outbuilding should be placed or erected on any lot. When that was written by, what's that guy's name? Law firm in Bowling. Everybody that's addressed this has said they're talking about a camper, not a trailer. But we see it different. It's any trailer. The guy behind the curtain. It's any trailer.
It's any trailer.
It's any trailer that insults me, except boating trailers because we're a boating community.
Well, the board voted on that. You know, I have a comment again. I mean, this comes up, it's been the 2 years I'm on the board, 2.5. I mean, it comes up in every darn meeting, and we argue about something like this. I thought at one point in time, my intent, way back when, I introduced the motion to have this thing addressed once and for all, and not just for trailers, but for commercial vehicles for the whole thing. What are our rules? And however long it takes, get them pinned down, rather than sending it out. But as long as this is the rule right now, I mean, we need to enforce
support
it.
it.
We just passed a motion, a resolution that says
That's our
we need to
obligation.
support it. It's our obligation to do this, and it
Exactly.
can't be a matter of opinion.
Or change the rules.
It can't be a matter of opinion.
Well, it can be. That's why
Unfortunately,
there's 7 votes. It can be a matter of opinion. Let me
It
quickly
didn't
address
need to
it.
come before us if there was no.
Let me
matter of
quickly
opinion.
address this. I want to get out of here too for something else, but this is
I have a
important.
meeting
I think it's
with
important to
Lee
explain to you. My personal feeling is, which means nothing, is that I'd rather see this white trailer that this guy might need for his business than to see a big, ugly, blue tarp covered pontoon boat next door. This, to me, he needs for his living, that he needs for his pleasure. But you know what? These are the rules, as I understand it. We have to enforce them, okay? So we can get all these sidetrack things, but that's not really what the name of the game here, okay? So I'm going to call a question. All in favor of going to court on this?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Next, Tail the Fox. Same as, let's see, okay. This is the unregistered vehicle on property, okay? This,
Does it now fall under the new or the old?
it falls under the new. This is being set up to me, I think, as a
It's no
test
longer a
case.
violation.
And this is the same old vehicle that does not have a license, okay? So I don't think, it doesn't look like a junk vehicle to me. So therefore, I'm going to call the question.
I think those bikes ought to be removed.
This says, send to the OP attorney for action. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay,
I'm going to abstain.
that's the last one, right?
Yep.
Okay. Public comments.
What was the vote on that?
5 no.
Opposed and
5 no.
One abstention.
You gotta have,
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Nobody moved that motion.
oh, we didn't have a motion either.
I'll move it.
We didn't do the other one either.
Somebody want to second it? Do you need it?
Well, we don't need it. Robert's rule says that as long as it's clear,
Never mind. Proceed.
you can,
I don't want to.
okay, yes, public comments.
Yeah, I'm Carol
Okay.
Mills. I live on Falconbridge Road. I don't want to belittle the Pinehurst water problem, but we would have been thrilled if our water had disappeared in 24 hours. We had it for days. Now, in relation to that, it's too late to help us, but it might help others. Are there any rules, regulations, monitoring, supervising of a builder bringing in fill dirt and filling, adding it to a lot before building? We didn't have this before the house went next door. Also, second question. If the guy next door, the current owner, is a real nice guy, we don't have problems. But if he would decide to pave that driveway, huge driveway, you'd have even more water. Do you have to have a permit to pave the driveway?
Two questions, right? The first
Yeah,
question is a
first
matter,
question was about bringing in-
until about 7 or 8 years ago, there were no stormwater management requirements in the county. Now there are, and if you put in 100 cubic foot of dirt or do a certain, disturb more than 5,000 square feet, you must get a stormwater management permit, and that permit must show that all your runoff must come back. You cannot run off things to somewhere else. But it's too late for most
Too
people
late,
to
but
buy.
it helps somebody else.
Yeah, and the second thing is that, I'm going to have to guess, I don't like to guess, but I think people are allowed to pave their driveways without permission. Not a good idea, because they've caused a lot of impervious surface, okay?
But you believe they are?
I believe there's no rule. I believe if somebody comes up and a paper guy
Unless
says I
they
can do
disturb
it.
more than 5,000 square feet.
Unless they disturb more than
Now,
5,000.
real quick on something you just said, there has been in place in this county rules against putting water off of a lot due to construction onto a neighbor's lot back into the 80s. And that's not, there is new stormwater management, but if you flooded a neighbor's lot because your construction, you were responsible for it in 85, I know for a fact.
Well, I never knew those rules. I heard a lot of talk about it, but never even saw the rules. Okay, thank you.
I have a question, I think, for Tom. Jim Mills, 06344. Why has the flag been down at the country club for the last month or so, and when is it going to be put back up?
We've just gotten the parts in last week, but what's happening is the flagpole at one point had been broken, and it has been reassembled at a smaller length. And because of that, every time they flew a flag, it would catch in the mechanisms and tear it up.
Okay.
So we just got the parts in. They hopefully within the next week or two they'll.
Any other public comments?
Good response.
Questions from the press?
Yeah, I'll ask. I got a question. How much is the county saying it's going to cost to do the Pinehurst bit?
If we were to tell you that, it'd be a pure swag, okay? I've heard, I don't even want to say it.
Don't say it, because we don't know. You don't know.
Depends on what you're talking about.
It's more than they have. How do they know it's more than they have if they don't have a cost, right?
Because they probably want to throw big numbers out there, this is all,
They just cut our road funding.
Let me tell you the number. The number I've
$450,000.
heard is very big.
Very
okay?
big.
How's that
And you
for a
can quote
non-answer?
You can quote it, very big.
Okay, but you know what would happen if I made that comment?
We don't know.
Okay, we don't know.
Not only that, but to
I'd
fix
say ask the county.
to
Anything
fix
else?
the
Any other
entire
comments?
problem.
Yeah, I will ask.
All right, then, without objection, I'm going to declare this meeting
Adjourn.
over.
All right.